So I used to have a boss that would, two things he wanted to do at every single meeting. One is always have an agenda. Second thing is he would ask us to introduce ourselves. I'm going to skip, I've got an agenda. I'm going to skip the introductions, except I'm just going to say, because we're virtual and be difficult, is it anybody not been to one of these meetings before? Raise your hand and introduce yourselves. Dan.
Dan Olson, the forest supervisor for the Washington Ozark St. Francis National Forest.
Thank you, Dan. Somebody else raise your hand. Yes, next to Bubba.
I'm Brendan Hood. I'm private lands farmfield biologist. I'm in Bubba in the Monticello area for RTI.
Okay. Anybody else not been to a? Okay.
I'm Lauren Luther. I'm a student at the University of Arkansas. I'm working on the Open Pines RCPP.
Okay. Oh, sorry. We're bad people. We're not using the mic. Okay. Anybody else? Well, thank you and welcome to you three that have never been to one of these meetings. I'm Doug Aiken. I'm the NRCS State Forester. And we're going to do the forestry subcommittee meeting now. It's May 7th, 2026. This is the agenda. I hope y'all can see this online. Thumbs up if you can. And someone monitoring online stuff. Maybe, maybe not. Thumbs up, yay. So this is the agenda, welcome introductions. We just did that. Purpose of the meeting, I'm fixing to do that. I'm going to update y'all on some of the costs, our cost list, and make y'all aware of some of the changes we've experienced at the NRCS. Clint Harris, I don't see Clint Harris. I don't know where he is. Maybe he's online. He was going to be here and talk about the shortleaf pine initiative. We'll skip that if he's not here. If he gets here later, we'll include him. And then we had a proposal from a member who wants to amend the woody residue treatment practice specifications. We're going to talk about that. And I've sent a what I would call a red line document out yesterday with the draft deletions and additions to it. And then we have a few discussion topics that some folks suggested. Ricky and Josh both suggested a couple of discussion topics we're going to talk about. So let's proceed. This is the purpose of the subcommittee meeting. We have, the NRCS has several subcommittees, alternative crop, soil health, water quality, water quantity, forestry, wildlife, and grazing. Some of these are mandated by the Farm Bill. These subcommittees provide input and make recommendations to the State Technical Committee, which is chaired by the State Conservationist, Amanda Mathis. Oh, I need to update this slide, don't I? I think I say that every time I show this slide, and I forget to do so. And then that committee, the State Technical Committee, considers the recommendations, and the State Conservationist, with our input, makes a determination whether to go forward and accept our recommendation or not. The State Technical Committee meeting this year is in this room, May 22nd. 21st is correct. Thursday, May 21st at what, 9, 10, something like that? Probably around 9-ish. And I'm not going to be here. Canton is going to provide whatever we decide today. My youngest daughter is getting married on the 22nd, and I'm expected to be there. I'll be out of town in Louisville, Kentucky. So a few changes we've had in our programs, EQIP and CSP this year. We have a new cost list. It was provided to us by headquarters. I can't wander away from this because I'll wander away from the mic. But on the top is a e-cost for fire breaks. Previous to this year, we could adjust the percent of the what we called cost share. And we would be given the total cost that was deemed, yeah, the true cost of implementing it. And we could scrunch that down to what would fit us in Arkansas rather than national average. We would, my word is scrunch it down to 40% of the 100% true cost because we thought that fit our costs here in Arkansas better. We can no longer do that. We can no longer manipulate the percent we pay. So it's all 75% now. So these are the 75% payments for fire breaks or these are the payments for fire breaks, 20 cents, and it's per foot, linear foot, 20 cents per linear foot for bare solo light equipment, $2.59 for moderate slope, less than 15%, and a $3.15 per foot for bare soil greater than 15%. That's bare minerals, those last year, bare mineral soil. Since we can no longer adjust the percent we pay, our guidance from our headquarters was to use caps to kind of manipulate the costs. So we have capped, and this all came out in January. We had to make a decision before the state technical committee because we started making ranking, planning and ranking in the spring. So we've capped bare minerals. We've capped the fire breaks at $16,700. For the 75% for HE, we've capped it at $20,040. 16,700 is about enough to make a mile of fire breaks, about 5,280 feet. Yeah.
Cap per contract?
Cap is per contract. Yeah.
Making sure. As opposed to like a fiscal year.
Oh, yes, it's per contract. So tree and shrub establishment came out at 97 cents a tree. And that's the only scenario so back up, we have these practices and we have scenarios we implement the practices under. We used to have bare root hardwood, for example. We used to have bare root pine. We used to have a container grown pine, which would be those containers of what I call rate leach tubes, in the little 1-year-old containers, pines. We don't have those scenarios anymore. We have one 1-year-old seedling scenario now, and it's seedlings without protection. Protection would be those tubes that you sometimes see around seedlings, and that pays 97 cents a tree. That's a lot for Arkansas. I estimate true cost of planting a tree, a bare root pine tree, for the material and the planting labor is about 25 cents a tree. So, so we chose to cap that practice and scenario at $11,000, which caused some people to maybe hyperventilate because if you do the math here at 545 trees per acre, first question people said to me, the DC said to me, or multiple DC said to me, is you mean you divide $11,000 by 545 trees per acre, that equates to about 20 acres. They said, you mean we can only plant 20 acres? And that's not the case. That's not the case at all. $11,000 at a quarter tree will allow you to plant a lot of acres, probably around 80 acres. We're only going to pay for $11,000. And that divided by 545 trees is going to be equates to 20 acres. But the person's going to get paid $11,000. They'll be able to use that those excess funds to pay for the remaining 60 acres. Does that make sense? So 80 acres would, in this scenario, would be in a contract, and the landowner would be checked on 80 acres. Clear as mud. But y'all got that? Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
So does that mean container options are no longer available at all?
Well, there is a 3-gallon container option that I did not include here. And that's like at $3 and something cents, I think. So yeah, there is a container scenario. Yeah.
We can still do containerized pine.
Oh, thank you.
Hardwood.
Sorry. Bare root pine, bare root hardwood, and the containerized pine are all still under that particular component. So we can still do the small containerized pines if that's what you was asking. As far as larger potted trees, we have a different scenario that still allows that as well. So
With the pricing to be 97 cents.
No, you could still plant a 3-gallon pot, but it's gonna have I just didn't show that one here. It's gonna be $3 and something cents for a 3-gallon pot. And it's rarely contracted, so I didn't use that. This one's contracted a lot, so I didn't show that one. Which is different than riparian buffers. Riparian buffers is a totally different practice, and we can use container grown stuff there too. We're doing best fit now. We've always done it, but we're really doing it now. Best fit scenario. So, like if you're going to plant bare root hardwood, you're gonna use this scenario. If you're going to do bare root pine, you're going to use this scenario because it fits it best, even though it doesn't say bare root hardwood or bare root pine. If you're going to do the container grown pine that's 1 year old, that's in the small containers, what I call ray leach tubes, you're going to use this. Lastly, this committee wanted to have a 40% rate on scenario 78, forest stand improvement. We can't do that anymore, so we've capped it at $10,500, which is enough to do 20 acres, I think, at that rate. I don't know how to look at that.
Are you on Zoom, Debbie? Can you ask these questions?
Tim White had a question, oh,
Okay, should NRCS not be lowering the planted acres of trees to the cap?
I don't understand that question.
So you said that the $11,000 covers 20 acres, so he's asking, should the NRCS be writing plans for 20 acres only?
Should the question came from someone out there, was it Ty Dillon? Ty Dillon asked, should plans be written for just 20 acres? No, the plan should be written and the field office should assess whatever the resource concern is for the entire acreage that's going to be planted.
Just for some context, hardwood seedlings have increased over 30% over the past 2 years. And they're averaging about 450 to 475 per something trees, young trees.
1,000.
Per 1,000 trees.
Okay. Some as high as 609,000 per 2026, 27 averaging price list. I guess it was, no, the price has increased 30%.
Right. Thank you for that, Tim.
You can send that to Doug and you can email it to Zach so he can
Yeah, send that to me, Tim, please. Send me that comment to me and I'll forward it to our economist.
That point, depending on the species, like the riparian species that we've been purchasing, some of them get up to the dollar. So,
For bare root,
yes. That includes, that pricing is included in.
Just depends on the species. If you're wanting to get a specific species, the price you have to purchase it out of state and ship it in.
so for some species, this cost for bare root hardwood is pretty close to being right there in the ballpark.
Yeah, but you mentioned like the labor to put it in
Right.
and preparing the site too is, part of the cost. So
Yeah.
I'm not sure what all is being factored into like the 25 cents you mentioned, but
Well, that was
I'll just,
sorry, that was for bare root pine.
yeah. So I'm just
Yeah.
echoing what Tim's saying is
Yeah.
that depending on the species, the price range is quite variable.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you for that, Joy. Yeah, this is 97 cents is right in there, I think, close to the real cost for hardwood. But it's we're really incentivizing pine by paying this amount for bare root pine when it's probably 75% more than 75 cents more per tree than what it costs. We're really incentivizing people planting pine. That's one way of looking at it. Any other questions, comments?
Doug, just to clarify, we still can plan the full acreage of the site preparation separate from the tree planting. So that goes kind of back to Ty's deal, or we may only pay for the planting on the 20, but we can still pay for the site prep on the full 80. And it does not have a cap on it, so.
That's right. Thank you for that, Josh. I forgot to mention that. Does that make sense to everyone? Yeah. Moving on. I saw Clint Harris walk in. Come on down here, Clint. Clint's going to give us an update. Clint is, correct me if I'm wrong, you're on a national committee for the shortleaf pine initiative. Is that right?
Yeah.
And you're going to give us a status report on what's going on.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah, I'll give us a short one. I was just gonna
Cool.
play that video if we want to beforehand. This was kind of what's going on in Arkansas. So I've been working with basically west of the Mississippi. So we've been working with Arkansas, Texas, Louisiana, and Missouri, kind of keeping that in track. The main thing that we're focusing on now is trying to get to increase our nursery production of shortleaves. So this year we've collected local genetic seed from the coastal plain. We got a pretty good representation of the genetics that are out of the Ouachitals because that was some of the largest last remnants. And the paint rock east, so northern Alabama is actually collecting a lot of seed as well. So we did get, so we're working to try to look at the genetics because we don't really know what we're putting in, we're plugging in. So we're going to do, hopefully, there's a big NIFWIF award that was put in. And so that'll look at the genetics across all 23 states of the shortleaf. And so we can kind of see, how big a difference, what are we actually impacting? And with the hopes of the next few years, have more local nurseries growing kind of site-specific trees. But right now we're trying to figure out how to fix we need more demand to increase our supply. So we're working with a couple of small local people to kind of prop up some nurseries with North American Reforestation. We're seeing how that'll go. But this year we did collect 1 million seeds from the coastal plain. This next year, we're going to hopefully collect 5 million. And once we get to 5 million, we can have storage for for the increased production. For the next year, we are gonna prop up one private nursery, that we're gonna be able to buy all the seedlings. So I'm gonna have to help all of y'all to help me put 300,000 in the ground. But, that's the kind of the future of that. We did have this year our big event it was the Shortleaf Pine National Conference that was in Alabama. That was the first one since COVID, I believe. So it kind of trailed off, but it was a really good event. Unfortunately, some of our federal partners couldn't make it, do some other things, but we had several hundred people there attended. It was a really neat event to see what they're doing, trying to build these wild orchards and support some of the seed collection efforts that we're looking at. So that's kind of where we're at as far as the Shortleaf Pine front. I think in the near future, we're gonna, the east side of the west side of the Mississippi is really kind of driving a lot of it, and the east is starting to catch up. It's just been a little slower because they didn't have the Ouachita's basically to work with. And so we did do our annual 10-year accomplishment report. And I can't remember the exact number, but I think it was like around over 1 million acres we've impacted in the last 10 years for shortleaf. That includes fire and TSI, reforestation efforts. And TNC themselves did reach 1 million. So planted 1 million seedlings over the last 10 years. So that was a pretty big accomplishment. And the other thing that we're working on is we're working to get, so we've established about 50 shortleaf pine monitoring plots. And we're comparing the growing season fires with the dormant season fires, the late growing season, early growing season, all of that's going into it. And we're looking at the resprouting, the survivability, mortality, and we're also looking at how we can create these BMPs around our fire. And when we put this in, so we're hoping to see, right now we're looking at well over a 70% survival rate, even at 1 year of fire. So that's been exciting to see that they're not getting top kill, or they're getting top kill, but they're not dying. So we're actually getting this shrub response that we're kind of looking for. And we're working to build a forest under a forest. So we're doing these underplantings to create this as we thin deeper into our basal area. We can actually have that forest regenerate quicker. So we're kind of emulating a catastrophic wildfire with what we're doing is kind of the way I look at it. That's kind of a quick synopsis of there's a lot of things going on, and it's on a lot of fronts, but Arkansas has definitely been driving a lot of the change. So it's really cool to be a part of. And Shortleaf Pine Initiative sells t-shirts, and hopefully they're going to sell enough to be a partner on some of these grants in the near future. And there's a few other organizations that are starting to.
Where can you buy a t-shirt?
I think on the
website. Click on the link. Let's watch the video.
And we did make a video with Arbor Day. So I have to give a shout out to them and North America Reforestation.
I don't know if the audience out there in the internet world will be able to hear it. I hope so.
Let's see. I think.
Oh, yeah, there it is, right there. You just passed it. There it is.
There we go.
We won't have audio.
We won't have audio.
They might, we don't, I don't know.
It's a good video. Watch it.
Did you pause it?
Yeah, at this point. I don't know.
We don't think that's gonna work.
We should.
So while we're trying to make it work,
Yeah, I'm gonna have to.
I got a question about the seedling and seed availability. Oh, I hear it going.
Yeah, it's not gonna work.
It's not gonna work. Sorry, folks, in the interworld, it's not gonna work.
My one time to be a movie star. Pulled short
Let me get
again.
on here. We'll drop the link in the chat.
Yeah,
there.
well, Canton will drop a link in the chat. Watch the movie. It's good. The whole website's pretty, that is a TNC on the TNC's website. That's a pretty good story map or something. I don't know what it is. But this,
Are there several people, several agencies doing a short time initiative?
yes.
Yes, it's a large interagency. A lot of state forestry divisions, a lot of, Fish and Wildlife, TNC, a lot of wildlife, Forest Service. It's pretty robust.
So my question about seed, forestry division used to have a seed orchard down at Bluff City and with short leaf in it. And they used to have a lot of seed but that might be from a little more, I don't know what where those trees came from. And you might be looking for more local sources to plant local in those areas, you know?
That's what
Okay.
we're kind of gonna collect the wild seed.
Yeah.
And so we're working with the Southeastern Research Station to,
Asheville or?
I think they're out of Atlanta
Okay,
now
okay,
or
okay.
Athens. Anyway,
No one knows where anything is.
that's but we're gonna be working with them to to just kind of go and pick and choose some of these sites around Arkansas to see how different the genetics are. We may be spinning our wheels, for lack of a better word, because if we run the whole genome and it's not terribly different, we'll just move forward and pick the big trees and roll on.
Yeah, I don't, that's an interesting point. I know years ago, go ahead.
I was gonna ask if you involved in the Seed to Success program.
The,
You involved the Seed to Success program, so. Had you involved in the Seed to Success program in that, because they're doing a lot of seed collection in the east right now. It's a big initiative out of BLM that's been out west for years. They're moving east. We've been doing collections on prairie plants for about 3 years on Audubon properties. But one of the benefits of it is they have long-term storage that's paid for through the process. Fish and Wildlife Services sort of heading it up here. If you want to know more about it, we can talk offline, but
yeah, hit me up.
be a good way to capture those genetics more long-term for future research, stuff like that, while you're at it.
And yeah.
Somebody will chat said, how do we get involved with the short-leaf time initiative? It used to be active, but I haven't received any emails or invites from me. That's Brian with CAW.
Just tell him to reach out to me and I'll get him on a list to start talking to people. We kept it pretty small on the startup side of it because it was actually not a nonprofit. So within the last year, we've got our 501c3. And so we kind of kept it small, a small board of advisors. And then we're slowly starting to scale up so we didn't overwhelm the machine.
Yeah.
Clint, one of the other things too is the Central Hardwoods joint venture. We're getting ready to revise our 10-year plan with the Interior Highlands Shortleaf Pine Initiative. So anybody that has an interest in being part of that, just hit me up, and I'd be happy to include you on that. So, because that plan is 12 years old now. So, and that's going to tie all into the Shortleaf Pine National Initiative as well. So, just a lot of moving parts going on right now, and we just need to make sure the right people are in the room. So,
yeah, and that was exactly where the Shortleaf Pine Initiative was. It was pretty backdated, and That's been the big thing, is trying to get everything up to speed. There's also a book, so the Shortleaf Pine Bible's coming out, like that Longleaf had. And I had somebody say down there, maybe it really rung true to me, but it was, longleaf or shortleaf's like long leaf, so nobody loves it. And I said, but you got to put yet at the end of it. And so, they are working on that, and it probably should be getting pretty close. We had a few chapters in it, and, so there is going to be a lot more information out there. There just wasn't a ton of FIA data. And so we've been having to try to build that as we go. It's kind of into the unknown. Yeah, it's the management manual of. Yeah, it's it's like the big guidelines for the whole thing. Perfect.
Yeah, and Clint, on that's in the like dual, double, triple edit mode right now. So that book should be coming out this year, hopefully.
Mike, use a mic.
Hello? Okay. Did you collect from Bluff City?
We did not. Well, we collected from Poison Springs State Forest. So we use those existing roads. What we figured out real fast was that you need about 80-year-old trees and a helicopter pretty much, because we were using an 80-foot boom and we couldn't get to the tops. And so, we figured out it takes about 45 minutes for you to put down the bucket truck, get in the bucket, go to the top. And if we were doing those small trees, and you'd get maybe a quarter of a bushel. And a bushel of shortleaf pine is, I think, 1,500 cones. So it really changed. We were kind of comparing it to some of the loblolly stuff, and loblolly is so much bigger. It was pretty hard to kind of figure out. So we figured out real quick that we needed big trees, lots of cones, fast, for it to reduce our mobilization costs. And then we also had a lot of false starts by having to get a contractor go down there, because you got to pull the cone from the tree, and then you got to float it. And we ended up going down there a few times and having to send them. It costs a lot of money to send that bucket truck back home. Well, it costs us just as much money to bring it down there and send it home as it does to get a bunch of stuff done. So that's what we're working on right now, is identifying 80-plus-year-old shortleaf pines across the range, that has access to where you can get a bucket truck to. There's a lot of, because I don't want to get that thing stuck, not while I'm down there, because that means lunch is going to be late. But that's been some of the troubles, because you find these big trees that have a high collectability, and what happens is that they're corner trees, or they're off in the middle of nowhere, that they couldn't cut anyway. And so that's where we're at now. We did not go to Bluff City, but I'd love to get some of those genetics when we start sending them off.
Yeah, I mean, we've had probably what would have been considered a bumper crop of seed collection recently. I mean, we have no shortage of seed out of that orchard.
And I think Fred Rayleigh or somebody can tell you exactly.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's not unknown. We're part of the Western Gulf Tree Improvement Program, so there's a lot of history and understanding what is out there and where it came from.
Yeah, I'd love to dig off into that, because that's just kind of what we're looking at. Is
also, why are you focused on private production when we could grow it at cost?
We're trying to do a bunch of containerized, and to see.
Okay. Yeah, there's no containerized facilities
that's what we're looking at, and we're going to try to do some special smaller batches to up some of that, like Arkansas oak and some of these stuff that we can't get on the market. And that's just kind of what we were thinking about.
Okay. Well, if there's a need for bare root, we have brand new equipment. We're planting seed twice as fast as we used to. You know, I mean, there's plenty of room to grow short leaf. We just don't produce containerized.
That's and I don't really know. So that's some of these shortleaf pine monitoring plots. Is because we've planted a bunch of bare root and a bunch of containerized, and we actually set up a experimental site, 40-acre experimental site where we planted 10 acres, 4 10-acre blocks of bare root, containerized, and it's on the docket to be burned. There's just not enough legs and torches to get everything done, but we're hoping to do that in these changed up seasonalities and to have a compare and contrast to see how we can create these best management plans to create the shortleaf forest in that stretch. So.
Any other questions, comments? Thank you, Clint. Appreciate that. Watch the video. It's a good video. Years ago, I think, when I was at Forestry Division Commission, we collected some short leaf, I think, seed from somewhere down around Warren or Drew County and grew for Heritage Commission. Brian Rupart may have been there at that time. He may have been the person we worked with. Can't remember. All right. What else we got? Woody residue treatment. It was suggested that we revisit this practice specification. Right now, our specs and have been like this for years. Our specs say that this practice can only be used when the governor declares a disaster. So like a tornado, ice event. So back in 2009, I think we used this. Y'all remember the 2009 ice storm in North Arkansas? After tornadoes, we have used this, but it's rarely contracted. Other states don't have that language. Many other states don't have that language in their specs. So I have rewritten our specs, sent them out to y'all. Hope y'all read them. And that would make it the way it's written proposed. The proposal I have out there, the way I wrote it, would make it apply more broadly than just after disaster. So did everyone read those? I know Austin said he glanced at them. Mark said Ricky looked at them. Mark Contreras said he looked at them. Chandler is shaking his head up and down. Hang on. Hold your questions. So we are bound in all of our practices by a standard. The standard is set nationally. We can't really change the standard. The standard defines what the practice is. In this case, is the treatment of residual woody material that is created due to management activities or natural disturbances, and lays out the purpose. And the bulletin items list here is all the purposes it can fit under, like reduce hazardous fuels, reduce the risk of harmful insects and disease, protect and maintain air quality by reducing the risk of wildfire, etc. And further, it tells us where like land use this can apply to. It applies to on all lands except active cropland, which makes sense that it doesn't apply to active cropland, and it applies to all lands where woody residue requires treatment. Okay, so Mark, what's your question?
It said a large amount of damage. Who determines that large amount?
That's a good question. So here's the red line document. And I've crossed out the stuff I want to remove, like in the first sentence under conditions where it applies. I've taken that out where it says it has to be declared a disaster by the governor. Any reference to that. And then what Mark is talking about is later on towards the bottom here, where it's evaluation of woody residue. And I have categories of damage defined. So there's 5 categories of damage. The first and second categories are light and probably wouldn't not. Let me rephrase that. Would not probably. They would not require treatment. The third, fourth, and fifth categories would require some sort of treatment. And it lays out the number of trees that are damaged and how you determine what category it is. And I would visualize this as either the Soilcon, the DC, or a partner like the Forestry Division or Game and Fish taking plots like a 10th or 100th acre plots, probably 10th acre plots, 1 per every 10 acres, and counting trees, damaged trees. And depending on your count, you would figure out what category this would fit in. And the scenarios we have are 5 to 15 tons pays one amount, I think it's $500 an acre. And over 15 tons per acre debris pays, I think $1,000 an acre. Did that answer your question? Who would determine? Was that your question? Who determines?
You know, tornado comes through,
Yeah.
landowner comes in to sign it up. It says a large quantity, so do we go out there and pull the plots? Do we determine if it's a large enough quantity to have it?
I think your moderate damage, severe damage, or catastrophic damage would determine if it was enough to require treatment.
Who sets price on it? Does the state conservation, the DC, or forestry specialist, who actually comes out and says, yes, I agree, that's 100%?
Well, it'd have to be documented, you know, and so you'd turn in your documentation, and that documentation would say, yeah, it's enough to.
Say when you take pictures and everything else.
Well, not only pictures, but you'd have to have plot data. That's the way. The problem I have right now, and I'll have to figure this out if we choose to go forward here, is translating these categories into tons per acre. And I'm pretty darn sure that's not a huge hurdle to overcome, because there are fuel models that can help us with that. Let's see. So here I'm just laying out different types of damage, 1 through 5 here. This is what I did. And then I lay out methods of treatment, which is in the specifications right now already. And there was what I took out there is a bad link to our BMP manual on Forestry Division's website. Put in the right link. But this stuff right there, the methods are in the specs already, so that hasn't changed.
It's not a reference down the material, BMP guide. I kind of left it generalized there.
Where was it?
More specific. Material in essence.
I think I may not have captured that right before that, but I think there's a general statement in the specifications about adhering to Arkansas's forest BMPs. I think that's what that is. It doesn't have anything specifically to do with woody residue treatment. So that's what I have out there on the table. Ricky?
Doug, I would be very interested in seeing the language that is in the practice standard and in 3 of the 4 existing scenarios from 384 to include that language of residue created by management activity or natural event. I'm seeing things on the landscape out there day by day that won't fit under this revision.
Okay,
This is still primarily standing timber that you're describing here. There are cases where previous logging activities have left woody residue in places that are going to cause problems. Massive amounts of it, either compressed or adjacent to other trees that you can't burn, or you're going to kill those trees. Seeing more and more of this insect and disease get into these thick pulpwood stands that can't be thinned and sold. And I'm trying to find a way, a practice that allows, and it appears to me this language here, due to previous management activities or natural disturbances, which would also include insects and disease, vary your purpose. I'd like to see that language expanded where those types of scenarios can be brought in as well.
so in other words, right here, we're, right here, I think we're talking about, really storm damage. You're talking about like, whatever you have, oh, no. You're talking about what?
Two. You have a laser right here in my hand,
Just
a little red button.
Oh, I see it on my hand. See it? There it is. So these categories look more like, really, storm damage, ice or tornado. What if you have God forbid, we have a southern pine beetle and in a small diameter stand and there's no broken trees, but it needs treatment because there's a lot of dead trees. What would you do then? Is that kind of what you're saying? Maybe, or maybe IPS right now, something like that.
That's one scenario is insects. But I'm also seeing logging activities leave massive amounts of debris within a stand that you can't just burn, or I'd burn it. Even I'm afraid to burn some of this stuff because it's going to kill so much stuff around it. And to have a practice where these previous management activities are covered, where you can remove that debris, the lopping, the hauling out. I mean, all the other components of the practice are already there. We just don't have the language there that allows something other than storm damage to be considered.
And in that case, there would be residual forest, right? Residual live trees.
Yes.
Okay. Give me some language, like we could do tons of fuel on the forest floor left from logging debris or something, we need to, we need a way to evaluate it. We need to set, some sort of, sidebars on it, I think, that we're paying $500 or $1,000 per acre. We need to figure out what we're paying for,
I'd be glad to work with anyone
Yeah.
to come up with a sort of that minimum or light, moderate, heavy, whatever that number
For
is.
slash, yeah.
I've got a note down with me, if you can follow up with that and work it up.
But, yeah, go ahead. I was gonna repeat what you
Yeah,
said.
Ricky, me and you will follow up with that and run that through Doug and Josh and that crew. And but I think so. I think as I'm listening, I mean, there's fuel models out there. I think there's somewhere we can get to a quantifiable something number of it meets it or it don't. And
That's exactly the words I was looking for. We need a way to quantify it.
yeah. So, but I've got a note here and yeah, Ricky, if that's fair enough, we'll work through that. So,
Okay, and we'll move forward. And maybe for the fall committee, we'll have something solid and proposal.
Yeah,
yeah, Doug, I think that would be good. Cause I mean, right now we're at the end of contracting, you know, what's done, you know, this ship has kind of sailed. But we need to have something in preparation for next year's sign up, and the fall meeting would set up for that. So, yeah, I think so. Is anybody else want to hop on that, Chandler?
Chandler, good job. Chandler Barton, volunteers.
I gotta use my
Since joining the agency 12 years ago, I've been doing forest health monitoring for the state, and we often categorize damage agents like you're seeing there. Usually it's percentage of treed area within a property that gets assigned a damage code. And I'm pretty comfortable with that scale there. That works really well for wind throw. Like you said, it's a little bit different for insect and disease activity. I worked in the practice for woody removal in our reforestation cost share program in the southeast, because we know there's tracks with standing dead pine trees that aren't getting salvaged. And so I needed some way to treat that before preparing the site for reforestation. So I think that's the key, is what's happening next. If you've got slash laying down and you're intending to grow residual trees for 15 more years, maybe the only concern here is wildfire. You're not preparing the site for planting in that case. There's a lot of factors here. There's even a statement in there about it being less than 2 feet from the ground, and depending on the damage agent, that isn't present or not.
So we have a committee.
I'll be in it.
Debbie, do you have those? Ricky, Bubba, and Josh Smith said he's in. Robert wants the mic.
So reading back at the conditions where this practice applies, and Ricky, correct me if I'm wrong here, I don't think a logging site would qualify for this. And this is what I'm going to say, because it says eligible forested acres will have large quantities of broken trees, uprooted trees, woody residue, and debris from a catastrophic event.
They're going to decide.
Okay, so we're looking to potentially open it up to try to get that. Okay, that's what I want to make sure, because I'm.
Doug has up to standard.
Mhm.
We can only make that more specific. We can't take things away.
Okay. Whatever. Okay, that's why I want to
We
make
can
sure,
do-
because
We have flexibility.
I was afraid we were barking up the wrong tree here. That's what I want to make sure.
So I'm going to repeat what I said, but what was just read off was from the spec, and Doug has the power to change the spec any way he wants. What is on the slide in front of us is the practice standard that comes from national, and we can only make practice standards more specific. We can't take things out. So he can add to the catastrophic event language, and that's what this committee is going to do. That's what Ricky was asking for at the beginning.
So the committee can make recommendations to the state con. State con makes the decision to adopt the recommendation.
Yeah, that
standing language right there that says residue created due to management activities or natural disturbances, not necessarily confined to weather, but disease and insects as well. You know, staying within that definition there and just broadening out, whatever, quantifiable segments we need to define there.
Okay.
But still fit within
Yeah.
this practice standard.
Sounds good. That sounds good. Sounds good. I'll send out an invite to the committee and we'll start meeting.
No.
This summer. Oh, yeah.
Just a point I'd like to make as
Yeah.
a non-forester, but a guy who's over the money.
Yeah.
And so the idea that this catastrophic event happens in the fall and next spring, we're going in there and treating it is a fantasy. If this is a cost shareable item, you could see a scenario where we would be 3 years after the catastrophic event before we ever started the practice. So what's that site going to look like 3 years later versus now? And what are some considerations? That's, you guys may say that's not a consideration, but I know in Southeast Arkansas, it gets hot and debris that's on the ground looks a whole lot different 3 years from now than it does right now. Hot and wet.
And he is just talking about the realities of contracting in our programs.
Yeah.
I know we're talking about the logging side of it. When you go back to the catastrophic event, don't forget FSA's programs are more readily available in a more timely fashion for tornado type damage. We really should push them there first. And if something happens there and they can't get in, then let's go back to our NRCS program.
That's Emergency Forest Restoration Program is what FSA has. And in theory, the money flows a lot more quickly there.
Hey, on that note too, sometimes it takes some of us and landowners going to FSA and asking for that to be invoked. They're not necessarily just going to jump up and say, "Hey, we had a tornado. Let's get some of that." It takes people coming to the office. So as y'all have landowners or you or whoever that is, push them to go to FSA. If FSA doesn't know it's a problem, then they'll never ask for it. It's kind of the way that's been. Yeah. Yeah, that's right. Landowners kind of have, yeah, that's right, Megan. They kind of, yeah.
No, say that to the microphone. Get to know your county committee members. That way the people online.
Get to know your county committee members and bug them.
Make your comments, you know, bring them something and, put their teeth into it. I mean, I sat on the county committee for 9 years and you want to do everything you can to help the producers. But I also want to make sure that whatever that was brought to me, that I could stand behind it and I could say there's good science behind this. So, you know, give them some talking points, for lack of a better word.
Some valid talking points.
Right.
Right.
We do the state technical committee. Debbie just has her own microphone. Usually pretty quiet at the subcommittees though.
Any other thing we want to say about this? I'll send out an invite. This committee will work on this through the summer. Sound good? Thanks, y'all. So we have discussion topics. We're kind of doing okay. I was worried that we talked stuff to death. And so I said 5 minutes here because we have a history of talking a lot about things. And, oh, there was something in the chat. It just popped up. I missed it though. Debbie.
Okay, it says Bluff City grew containerized wildlife pines for us from locally collected seeds in Monroe County.
So never mind. I was totally wrong. It was lob, not shortleaf. That was Brian Repar said that, wasn't it? I could have sworn we collected something in Drury County too, but oh well, my memory is bad. This was a topic brought forward by a committee member here. So we 643 has been removed, which was restoration of rare and declining habitats. We don't no longer have a good scenario for that. We use that for restoring native prairies. And this may be a topic for later on, the next committee, but what do we have to replace that? Forest stand improvement is not really the best fit for this because we go, and I don't have the definition and the purpose of the forest stand improvement, but it doesn't really fit within that. Prairie restoration doesn't fit within the definition of forest stand improvement standard. So I think there's got to be something out there, and maybe we need to discuss this in the next committee, but there's got to be something out there that's
Was
good
the
for
question
prairie restoration.
about the existing condition being early successional growth and the land use couldn't really be categorized as forest? Is that?
In our RCPP projects, I'm dealing with a landowner who has a part of his property is in the Blackland Prairie soil type. It is nothing but a cedar thicket. So to restore the prairie, I need to remove all the cedar from the site, which doesn't fit 666. I don't have anything in the pasture world that fits doing that. So losing 643 in light of what we're trying to do with RCPP is left us hanging out here with landowners that need to do work now and no way to get it done.
All right, so 643 went away because I took it away. I had to take it away because the scenarios nationwide were quote unquote simplified. We always use the glade, savanna, prairie, or woodland restoration scenario. That's a scenario that you would like to use in this situation. What was left for FY26 was just monitoring and management. The language for those scenarios is the exact same language that is in 644 wetland wildlife habitat management and 645 upland wildlife habitat management. The problem on Doug's end is forest stand improvement has to leave an existing forested condition of some kind when that is done. Me and the biologist, the state biologist for Missouri, sent some really long, detailed emails to our regional biologists and spoke back and forth a lot with our other regional biologists. The problem is not, and this Blackland Prairie kind of fits into what we were talking about, but not all these other states have glades. And so that type of restoration doesn't occur in other states. And so that's why it was taken away. The way that 643 is directed now, it really only fixes, I think there's one more scenario in there that is for coastline stuff. So I'll have to elevate that to our regional bios and talk about it. The one solution that we might be able to do, and let me back up and say before that, we technically can't write new scenarios right now, but that could change. And so the one solution that might occur could fall under 828 wildlife habitat site prep. But we would have to figure out a way to evaluate existing conditions, kind of like what we were just talking about. In your case, Ricky, if it could be thinned, should we try to thin it first and then come back with site prep for treatment later? We'd have to figure that out. So, but I think that's the direction we could go. Anybody else that's familiar with NRCS? have any other
Are they
suggestions.
large acreages? What would a prairie be?
About 200 acres.
Wow, that's large.
Yeah. Yeah, because the fix that we did for 643 with glades is because it's typically a pocket inside another existing forest, is we basically can clear off the entire glade and still maintain that basal area.
Because I
goal.
consider a glade to be part of a forest
Right.
ecosystem.
But for a blackland prairie, that's different. You know, anything in the Gulf Coastal Plain is just different and is going to grow fast. And anyway,
In this specific example here, there are at least 3, what I call inclusions. It's a different soil type within that area where there will remain some standing hardwood timber in little patches. Is that going to be enough to get me a residual stand if I take all the cedar out?
the goal is ecosystem restoration, right? We're trying to put it back into natural conditions. And so we need a better mechanism to get there. And I think the wildlife habitat site prep might be the direction.
We have a pretty low bar for what is a forest in the NRCS, but I don't think it's quite that low.
Yeah. Wildlife habitat site prep might be something we look at. I know we've talked a lot about practice 314 brush management and the nuances around that. But out west, where cedar encroachment is taking over large expanses of prairies in the Great Plains, NRCS is contracting 314 brush management to do that. And I know that it is a pasture practice, but maybe we just need to put together a solid case to go to the grazing land subcommittee and say, you know, can this be an option? And I know we've talked about that, but right now only chemical, that there's only a chemical scenario available for practice 314 in Arkansas. But there might be a case to be made there.
Anything
Okay,
else?
Caleb's got one more thing and then.
Caleb,
Are we over our 5 minutes?
it's okay.
Okay, in scenarios like that, is there any way to do like 666 patch clear cuts? If you're doing like a glade restoration or trying to restore it back to a prairie and it's only cedars?
I think it's gonna come back to the residual forest, right?
Right, yes.
Patch clear cut is, if you had enough residual forest there, yeah, we could.
But not 200 acres.
Right. Yeah, you can't do all 200.
Yeah.
You can do the patches within the 200 and and still maintain your basal area goal
I don't think we
for
wanna do
forest
that.
stand improvement.
I don't think.
Yeah,
we
I mean,
wanna
if they're
do
just
that.
patches, but you've got a forest around it, then yeah. That's where we're using, I've got guidance on that. I'll send it to you.
I got, is on, I got one thing that we done for prairie restoration. I didn't much care for it, but this fits the mold is we cut rows in those to thermal thin later on. And, we left the retaining, cedar and we cut basically windrows into them, kind of fill them into the others, and then we burned it, and then we had a snag issue, but it worked really well, and that may be a way to kind of get around it. I don't know.
Yeah, I agree. Well, and that's the other deal too. I mean, not all cases are going to be 200 acres, but it's blackland prairie. And so what kind of methods are we using to go in and take this out? So say we go in and take all 200 acres out. Are we using skidders or everything like that? You know, because I'm worried about, my worry would be an erosion issue afterward kind of thing. And so either if we have something that'll work or not, I feel like that instance of restoration is a time thing where we're looking at a goal 10 years down the road, but we want to take it a piece at a time. I might be wrong. Y'all might know more than me, but
Well, my crystal ball is not any better than anybody else's. We are talking to two different contractors to commercial thin get as much of that out of there as we possibly can, so we don't have that amount of debris to deal with. But again, that's all talk right now. There's nothing definite, but that would be our best case scenario, would be able to commercially remove as much of that cedar as we could. And then that leaves us dealing with the residual, whatever what it's not commercial or doesn't get cut.
So can we agree that this is really a wildlife issue, not
Yeah.
forestry?
Glad you said that. Hey, Doug,
Comment, is it good? Doug, that comment's timely. I want to throw this out there on that comment. So as I've said in AFWA and North American back in September and back in March, a couple of weeks ago, Jerry Rayner with NRCS, all this came up. This is coming up. This exact scenario is coming up all across the United States of America. And his direction coming from nationals was, you find a practice that best fits it. This whole thing, he doesn't care what 666 says. He doesn't care. So we're hearing this message coming from him of saying, be able to find a message. And then we come down here and get local and we get shut down. So what's happening in the wildlife world, we get pigeonholed into these practices and then we get shut down because of local stuff. Now, again, I appreciate the conversation. I'm glad we're having it, but coming from national, the message I hear is find one. And he's not worried about what none of this is. So whether we go and we talk to 314 or 666 or whatever it is until we get 643 back, I'm asking for a solution.
So what I've heard from headquarters is specific to scenarios, not to practices. I'm still hearing we got to adhere to the practice standard and the purpose in the practice standard. But within that practice, we need to find the best fit for the scenario. But you are right, and I've heard find the best fit. And that's like the bare root seedling. What if we have container grown 1-year-old seedlings? Well, that's what it is. So, but having said that, yeah, we need to find the best fit for your needs. There's got to be something. There's got to be something out there.
what's our action item?
Well, is to
our
move
action
right
item is
now
not
to-
forestry.
Yeah, right now
So,
it's not forestry.
I mean, the answer right now is that it's not going to be a forestry practice. I think the action item is we need to all go bother Jeremy Huff about 314.
314 and 315 are combined now? That's
No, they're separate.
Is there a recommendation here?
No.
Okay.
Next week. That might be the action.
I would clarify and say there's an action item and not a recommendation. So the distinction is, I would say that Canton is committed to working with Jeremy or talking to Jeremy about the possibility of going forward with pasture practice. And the reason I want to make that distinction is because recommendation would go to the state con, and I'm not going to make a recommendation coming from this committee that's concerning the practice that's not under my discipline area. Does that make sense? Is that good? Is that good, Bubba? Are you okay? We're not going to fight, are we? Okay.
I say that in friendly talk.
Okay.
We're all having to navigate this. I mean, it is. But all of us got it wrong.
and we're all trying to figure it out together. Okay, Josh, wanted to talk about limitations on resetting cutover forest land. I'm going to sit down.
This may not be an issue to nobody but me, so y'all just tell me if this is a non-issue and we'll move on. But something we've run across, or that I run across, and I'm sorry, the ones that I have not met, Josh Smith. I'm the NRCS Forester in the Southwest region of the state. So down there in South Arkansas, Pine Country, we get a lot of applications for site preparation and tree planting. There's some language in our standards and specs. I don't want to bore you reading through all this. The next one kind of hits on the points that is kind of brought an issue for me right now, and that's the down here when it starts talking about we can do something based on just the landowner's objectives. And where this comes into me is we've run across these stands that people have applied for. Maybe it's a 15-year-old of advanced upland hardwood regeneration. And they go, well, I don't want that. I want loblolly pine plantations. Well, I have an issue with that, and we have a stand that's met every resource concern in the book other than the landowner objective. I have a problem going in there and spending, 2 or 3 times the amount of funding on site prep to reset this thing than it would on a normal cutover. Years ago, we had this, it was before I even started at NRCS. I don't know if it was a written or an unwritten rule to where, if it was cut over for more than 3 years prior to application date, it was not eligible for planting, reforestation and planting cost. That rule is not written today, whether it was ever written or not. That may have just been an unwritten rule we kind of went by. But when we run across these scenarios, the way our specs are written, we really can't say no, because it still says in there we can base it strictly on that landowner objective. So I guess my case here, what I'm trying to ask is, I would like to see us possibly modify the specification, if the subcommittee agreed. Just something to say, something along these lines. This ain't got to be the way it's written. I was just trying to put something together for a discussion topic here, but so this is an inclusion we could put into specs or something like this, where it would say potential sites should be assessed by a forester to determine applicable resource concerns that could be treated with tree shrub establishment. Harvested sites over 3 years old that have already received natural regeneration should be assessed to determine if the regenerated species are adapted to the site and meet an adequate stocking guideline that supports the desired ecological function. If found to have met the above criteria, then the stand should be managed as is. Refer to the forest stand improvement for management options to alter the species composition and density if needed. And then last statement there, if the stand does not meet the above criteria, then we can use the tree shrub site prep code 490, and tree shrub establishment should be planned according to the guidelines below, which goes into the rest of the specifications for that practice. So I guess my question is this an issue that we should be addressing? Or are we okay with the way the specifications are currently written with wide open playbook there?
Josh, for me personally, I kind of follow this line of thinking. I go out there and look at a lot of these, a lot of them out there. I want to see what that residual stand is. If there's enough wildlife beneficial trees in that stand currently, I try to guide that landowner to be patient, let it go a little bit longer. We can do a hack and squirt, take the stuff out we don't want. If you go out there and you cut everything down and start over, you're losing 10, 12 years of growth that, that otherwise you're that far ahead of the game. So in my mind, I'm trying to follow that kind of a scenario. Is if there's something worth saving, let's save it. But if not, then we wipe it out and start over.
And much like you just said, I do the same thing. If I'm in those discussions with that landowner, I try to push them that direction. But at the end of the day, I can't say that does not qualify for tree planting. because by per the specs, it does. You know, and if, as an NRCS employee, if I'm gonna be forced to make that determination, I've got to be able to back it up in case it's ever appealed on me. So, for me to be able to say that stand meets all the resource concerns we're concerned with, we need to manage it differently. To have any, to merit to that statement, I need something in the specs to base it off of.
Josh, is this, I know when I've seen it, and I'm just curious when you and others have seen it, is it only tied to loblolly pine planting?
Not necessarily. I mean, I wouldn't say that. I've seen several scenarios where I've seen some where they want to knock it down and plant hardwood back, you know, and I'm like, there's already 200 oak trees an acre sitting there. Why in the world would you knock this back? And but in those situations, I kind of probably do have a little more merit to say, hey, well, we've already got what you want there. The issues is primarily back to the pine that I really have an issue with. It's like, hey, this upland hardwood stand's got great oak regeneration. It may have some other species mixed in there, you know, some sweet gum, elm, maple, other stuff. But when I'm sitting there looking at 12 to 15-year-old, you know, oak trees, and they're like, oh, I want to knock it down and plant a pine plantation that we turn around in 12 to 15 years, we can't even manage it. That's an issue for me. I just don't see where our federal funding is well spent in those scenarios. But
Josh,
yes, sir.
it's George. This gets back to some years ago, you know, it used to be, like you talking about that 3-year rule from a cut, whether we could do site prep or not, but we had for a long time, it was you can't kill a tree to plant a tree, you know. But, you know, you get a lot of scenarios where like an overgrown field or something where you got cedar, or if something's been high graded where up in the hills, it's just hickory and cedar. You know, it's it seems to me you would allow that to go back to nothing so you could start over again. So I hate to see us to get back to a situation where we decide that we can't kill a tree to plant a tree. You know, certainly there is and I mean, if you got hickory and cedar, you know, certainly I think a lot of people would agree we want to get something else in there based on landowner objectives, you know, what would be better. So my concern would be we need to allow people to what's I guess what side of the fence you're on, whether wildlife or forestry, but try to decide what's desirable or undesirable. But if it's something undesirable, we'll be allowed them to get away from it, especially if it's some kind of invasive species. You know, we need to kill stuff to go to plant back. So just the idea that there's trees out there and you can't kill them, I think is a bad idea.
Thank you, George. And I would agree with that statement. If you read back into that statement I've put up there, that second sentence where it's talking about the harvested sites over 3 years old that have already received that natural regeneration should be assessed to determine if that regeneration is of good species and adapted to the site and meet that adequate stocking guideline. I think the way that is written, it still allows us to get into those stands where it's not what we want or what not should be there, and say, hey, that's not what's supposed to be there. It's not adapted to the site, and that would still allow us to start that stand over.
Who decides if it's a good species?
According to this, it would be the forester that's evaluating it.
Based on what?
Based on their knowledge and experience.
Landowners' desires?
There's ecological site descriptions, there's, you know, web soil survey. How about ecological site conditions or web soil survey for suitable species?
Well, the web soil survey has a lot of, I mean, what can grow on there. I mean, it can be pine or hardwood based on what you look on the web soil survey stuff. So kind of getting back to web soil survey is anything that'll grow there basically. So, I mean.
What about ecological site descriptions?
You'll have to brush me up on that, Doug. I don't know what the. Anyway, my vote is we need to have quite a bit of latitude based on, uh, being able to kill trees and put trees back, you know. It would be my comment.
I don't know if this is exactly where this will fit, but some of the work that we've been doing with the short leaf and the underplanting and these ideas, I know that NRCS doesn't support underplanting currently, but is this some way to get kind of, we know we can't do it with, loblolly under 3-year fire return. We'll take that out, but with short leaf, you can maintain that conservation value with underplanting to create that forest under a forest while keeping your residual overstory. Is this something that we would look at here, or is there another place to be talking about it?
I think that goes back to landowner objectives and their perception of what species of pine do I want out here that's going to be profitable for me. And they're going to want a fast turnaround is typically what I'm assuming these landowners are looking for.
And a lot of circumstances, yes. They're looking for something more productive than what they've probably got. But in the big scheme of things, what they have is perfectly fine. And it's these stands that they go in and if you can go in there and justify, take a couple plots and go, hey, we've got an adequate stand of upland hardwood regeneration or bottomland hardwood, whatever, fits that site that we're looking at. If everything comes back and says, hey, this stand is manageable, why in the world are we starting that over? I don't know how to, if this statement does not allow us the capabilities to turn that down, but still hit those things that George is talking about. I mean, because I got the same concerns George does there. I mean, I don't want to go in there and say, hey, this is, nothing but tallow trees and privet and cedar. We can't start this over. I don't want that situation. I want to be able to work on those. At the same time, we still got to, in my eyes, I'd still like to curtail this other out of it.
Is site index something that would work, or is that just not going to fit? Could you put a cutoff at a specific site index?
What do you think, Doug? I think site index would be harder to work with personally. I
Just throwing ideas out there.
If we're relying on a forester or a biologist, somebody with some education and experience in managing our forest, why can't we put that on their shoulders to make that determination based off whatever tools they have in their toolbox to use there, without having to narrow it down in our specs that tight?
Josh, if you go back to your previous slide where you highlighted it, it said landowner objectives and ecological characteristics of the site. And I guess the way that I was reading that is your proposed suggested statement there is really just an expansion on that ecological characteristics. Is that, if all we're doing is adding that, we're just expanding upon and clarifying what that statement really means. It's not taking totally out landowner objectives. It's just that in combination with the considerations of the site. Is that tracking, or are you thinking about taking out landowner objectives?
No, I don't want to take the landowner objectives out. I mean, I still think the recommendations that we provide through our program should be based off of, should take into consideration the landowner's objectives, but I don't know that they should outweigh the ecological characteristics of what they've already got there. That statement that's highlighted, that comes out of our standard, right? And what I'm talking about is putting into our specifications, which would put narrower boards on it. But
I think that proposed language as you have it there, maybe a couple of wording adjustments as needed, but that would, to me, it just clarifies that and what the actual intent is. And it sounds great to me. That's a recommendation.
Hello? Can you hear me? So does everyone agree except for George that we move forward with this language? George, are you okay if we move forward with this language that Josh has?
I'm retired, Doug. I'll throw a rock at something once in a while, but I
So,
consider the upland hardwoods, northern, he's thinking about down on the coastal plain and stuff, but when you get some of these high graded stands in the hills, you gotta have some choices to work with, so I just don't want to get down to where we can't kill something to start over, it yeah,
Right,
I mean, we were at one time some years ago, I'll just repeat myself, you couldn't kill a tree to plant a tree, so, and I really would hate to see us go back to that, so.
I don't think Josh is suggesting that. I think he's suggesting that if there's suitable species that are adapted to this site and are adequately stocked and we can work with, I think he's saying let's work with that. I used to know an old forester. I still know that old forester. He used to say, mistakes in forestry take a long time to heal. And I think we're trying to heal these maybe past mistakes without spending a whole lot of money to do it quickly.
Well, I mean, if you're left with cedar, I mean, someone, they've come through and taken everything else, and you're left with cedar and hickory. Are you
Yeah,
proposing they have to manage the cedar and hickory?
I don't think that's what we're talking about.
Okay.
Are you, George,
No,
Josh? Yeah. Do you know who that old forester was, Jordan?
I've heard that before, yes. I mean, you're right. There's been a lot of mistakes in the past, and we just don't want to make people have to live with those from now on. So,
Hey, George, I got a question. Would you say a hickory and cedar upland site be a desired ecological function? Would it be meeting that?
well, I mean, sure.
But what if it's not?
Well, why wouldn't it? What's
Well,
the resource concern other than somebody wants something different? Some of
not
that
providing
stuff.
wildlife habitat like it's supposed to. I mean, I think that gives us an out, I think.
Well,
with the way it's
that's
written.
it. I mean, you want to say, well, it's not good for wildlife, okay, but I mean, it kind of gets back to that kind of what you're saying. There's some objectives there that we need to allow them to fix it. Yeah. It doesn't have to always just be wildlife, but there's a big overlap in wildlife and forestry. What they do to manage your timber will help the wildlife too. So, I think the rub comes, and I think I would agree with a lot of it is when you go into a conversion. When you just converting all the species to something new, then it's well, and it was kind of good trees, then I can understand a rub there, but I don't want to take everything else away because of that one rub. Anyway, that's my input.
So Debbie, we have a recommendation, and that's to adopt the language that Josh has proposed. Josh did.
No, that was
Austin Kleiss. And Jeff Powelson seconded it. And then I asked for consensus, and I didn't hear any strongly dissenting voices. And we're going to move on now.
okay. All right, so the second topic that I wanted to address was addressing new agency priorities for preserving and protecting agricultural land. We've got Chief Betancourt sent out new agency priorities for us back in December, and I think these have been recent discussions about this too. But they've outlined 5 priorities for the NRCS, and this is kind of our new vision, I guess, but I know that's tough to read. I'm pretty sure. Okay, so yeah, the top one there is for preserving and protecting agricultural land. These priorities reflect a clear focus on strengthening service to our producers, modernizing how we operate, and delivering measurable conservation outcomes while keeping farmers and ranchers at the center of everything we do. That was from Chief Betancourt. The NRCS priorities, the first one is preserve and protect agricultural land. Second one is to modernize NRCS infrastructure and technology. Third one is to recenter field engagement and technical assistance. And the fourth one was to strengthen partnerships by streamline processes and accountability. The one I wanted to address is that first one, which was preserving and protecting agricultural land. In that priority there, the goal was to reduce the loss of productive farmland and safeguard the long-term viability of America's agricultural landscapes, which includes expanded targeted conservation easement programs to slow the loss of 5,000 acres of farmland per day, partner with local governments and land trusts, prioritize farmland preservation, advocate for policies that incentivize keeping land in agricultural production, promote regenerative practices that strengthen soil health and ensure long-term productivity and profitability, and integrate whole farm planning into conservation efforts to provide comprehensive support to farmers. So this was sent out to the NRCS employees. We were supposed to take this and run with it, I guess. But so my question and suggestion or however, but is if that is now our priority, number one priority with NRCS, my question here is, should we be allowing the use of 612 tree planting to convert prime agricultural land to forest land? Should we be using our practices to take land out of agricultural production and put it into forest? And I would entertain some discussion there to see what y'all think about that.
Okay, Hey, Josh, what do you mean by R? What's that? What's that?
The implementation requirements.
Comment I have on that is kind of a broader picture. When you're working with a landowner and you're trying to do a whole farm evaluation, a balance between ag, forest, wildlife, whatever those are, and you're trying to get that total plan. When you put cropland, whether you're calling it prime cropland or not, it'd be interesting to know if that was prior converted. Was it a bottomland hardwood? And I say that in as, even if you put more trees in agroforestry, or to me, forestry is part of agriculture. And I don't have a problem with planting more trees. I'm one for cutting more trees, but that's from a health standpoint. So protecting ag land, I don't want to see you all hanging ourselves because we can't plant trees because it's protecting ag land. If you're doing a whole farm evaluation and trees are an objective, I think that should be allowed. But because I'm looking at a balanced farm plan, and forestry to me is just as important as corn and beans and cotton and everything else. So, but if you look historically, what was that ground before? That's kind of how I look at it. Just a broad comment.
Thank you.
Sure, to goodness, we're not going to go contrary to WRP and CRP. I mean, there's government programs out there just for the purpose of, putting trees back on farmland. We wouldn't want NRCS to be something contrary to that, would we?
Well, I don't know that these priorities that were sent really care what I think about it. That's our chief's priorities.
Yeah.
We just kind of got to align ourselves with those priorities now.
Yeah, I think Josh too, and it kind of go along with what George just said. So I think WRP and CRP kind of have a little bit of a exception because farmers use that for whole farm productivity. I know this is like one bullet in the cropland and that, but there's also chief's priorities that outline whole farm productivity and using programs to make them more productive. So if they're retiring their less productive lands to put in CRP and WRP, that addresses the chief's priorities as well. So we can do both, I guess.
Somebody correct me, CRP, is that can you put prime farmland in the CRP or is it just marginal farmlands?
It says marginal, but rental rates are kind of based on productivity, or at least they used to be. So the higher the better the soils, the more you got rented. But it was always intended for marginal land. And with the productivity tools out there now, if we had better incentive payments, it would be utilized more on parts of fields and fields that had lower productivity because they know what the production of that is. So they wouldn't take their higher production stuff out. They would just go to their lower production. But right now, CRP is kind of in the, I mean, we only got 1,000 acres or 100,000 or million acres, whatever nationally that we can enroll in CRP this year. So I mean, until they up the cap, CRP is kind of it just kind of sitting there right now. So the national cap.
Do we believe the national cap may be reduced to align with the priorities of the agency?
So the farm bill that just passed the House and all the language I've seen keeps the cap at 27 million acres. So if they pass something, it's probably going to stay at 27 million. And the last 2 or 3 years, we've had like 1 million acres that's able to re-enroll across the nation. It's just until they bump that up to 30 or 40 million acres, it's just going to stay. As far as re-enrolling new stuff, it's just going to kind of stay where it's at.
Josh, I'd add to that. Stop and think of when you're going to be planting trees on a farm ground. It's either going to be the marginal field or you got a farmer that's retiring and it's not going to get farmed again, more than likely. I mean, unless he's going to rent it out to someone else, it's just going to be fallow field at that point. So I don't think it'd be out of line saying that, yeah, we can plant trees here. So, and as stated before, are trees not part of agriculture?
They are, but I don't eat pine cones, so, you know, I like the steak and taters too. You know, and I'm not Chief Betancourt, of course, but I don't know. That statement is all I have to work off of. You know, we can wait until we get further guidance on that if we need to.
Is the intent for just to prevent pasture and field and row crop being planted to trees, or the intent to keep row crop fields after being planted in solar panels? If forestry is agriculture, it's agriculture, and I think it is. We're seeing a crazy amount of CRP get cleared to put into solar panels. Yeah, I can. And harvested forest land, it's solar. It's a 1,000 acres. When I asked the row crop folks, why are you planting solar panels on your rice fields? They say, well, they're paying $500 an acre rent. I like cheap electricity too. And stuff.
That's a good question. You know, like I said before, this statement's what we've got to work off of. Whether her intent was for solar panels and urbanization of our farms and farm ground, or if it's afforestation, or if that 5,000 acres a day counts all of that. I do not have that statistic to back any of that up.
I think your first bullet point up there kind of gives a little bit of clarity, a little bit of clarity in this.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it says expand targeted conservation easement programs to slow the loss of 5,000 acres of farmland per day. So planting trees is part of EQIP. I mean, that's one of our conservation programs. So we would want to expand that. I mean,
it's not an easement program. I mean, we could have grassland easements or
ALE.
CRP easements.
The ALE. And I think going back to what Brian said, just listening to other conversations and other working groups, and I don't think that they're worried about losing farmland to a conservation program. Where it's aimed at is subdivisions, solar panels. It's losing it to something of a permanent type. That's where it's like ALE is. There's more focus on that now, even in Arkansas, of protecting some of those lands here. But it's not against putting it in trees or putting it in a conservation land use. It's putting it in a subdivision is what they're guarding against there. That's the way I've taken most of the conversation. So I think what you said, let's maybe just pause on this and just kind of keep a pulse on it. I think, and maybe revisit it in the fall and see if anything else has come out. I think that would probably be the wisest thing to do.
Seems like the consensus of the group that I've gathered. They hungry.
What else we have?
That was it on my end. I think, that was back to you.
Back to me. Thank you, Josh. Anybody else have any questions or comments for the forestry committee? We have one recommendation, solid recommendation, and that was to change the language in 612 to Josh's submit the language, the submitted 612 language submitted by Josh.
After that, but I might.
That's good. I'll send it to you. And I committed Canton to something, but it's not a recommendation. And I think that was pretty much all of our action items.
Is it Jerry Tager?
Jeremy Huff. Jeremy Huff.
Oh, she's talking about the Jerry he was talking about.
And no, Jeremy Huff. And also, another action item is, 384. Yeah, the 384 committee, for woody residue treatment. We're going to work on those specs. So three things.
That was, David Fish staff, Josh Smith, Forestry Division, along with y'all.
Yeah, right. All right.
Is lunch here?
I don't know, we're supposed to be here 11:30.
And next on the agenda is wildlife. And is that like a next?
Yeah, we've got partner presentations, so I'm trying
we do?
to figure out if lunch is here, then we're going to break now. But if it's not here, we got to take a couple minutes. We're going to let Ted Zavizlak, is that the right? Yeah. Yeah, we're going to let Ted talk about the Arkansas Central Highlands Conservation Delivery Network, or the ARSN CDN. Food's here? Okay, we're waiting. We're waiting. So how long are we going to break for? It's 11:20.
Let's talk about the break. Are we going to break now?
Yeah, we're breaking now.
So there is another group back here in one of the classrooms. We have one classroom, but not both. And we have that, they call it the canteen behind there are tables behind the front desk. And I think there are tables outside too, on a little patio. If you go out there, I think the door locks behind you though. So
40 minutes long enough, come back at noon? That work? And we need people who haven't signed in to sign in, please. Is 40 minutes good, y'all, or do you want an hour?
I think 40 minutes
40
is
minutes?
good.
Okay, we'll come back at 12 o'clock, everybody online.
Yeah, online, we'll come back at 12 o'clock and with the wildlife committee. The forestry committee is concluded. Thanks, y'all. Thank you, Doug. So if you want to
excuse me. Ted's gonna start off, talking about the Arkansas Central Highlands Conservation Delivery Network.
So I guess this new CDN, which for North Arkansas, it's been formed for about a year now, I think. We just had our second meeting back in March in Berryville. The acronym is ARSON. So, but it's Arkansas Central Highlands CDN. It's basically all of the Ozark ecoregion, hopefully to expand one day into Missouri and probably Oklahoma. But for now, we're kind of focusing on ourselves. We kind of got four different pillars: partner-driven collaboration, science-based management, working forest and grassland, watershed, and streamside management. So that's kind of the four things the groups have kind of focused on. I guess I was elected president by Bubba twisted my arm. And Sim Barrow is the vice chair. So September 15th coming up in Melbourne, Arkansas. If anybody was interested, that we're going to have another partnership meeting and a field tour on that particular day on a landowner's property. Really, that's about it. I mean, it's just kind of a new thing for North Arkansas. You know, the CDN's been going on down in other parts of Arkansas for many years. Kind of neat for my career that, like I said, CDNs was always something Bubba got involved in. I never really got involved in it much up in North Arkansas, but kind of cool to see that get established. So.
I thought I had a map and I don't. I think it's on my GIS. Anyway, the area is really the Ozarks and kind of cuts off at the
Randolph
67
County.
split down. And then really, I would like to include the Highlands on the north side of the river valley as well, for this kind of stuff. And so if anybody that doesn't know what a conservation delivery network is, it's a larger collaboration for regional areas. That's a cross-discipline thing where we're trying to get people to talk about conservation objectives that typically don't have conversations with each other. And so that's the goal of this. Our last meeting, I think Ted mentioned it, was about watersheds. This next one, is it forestry stuff that we're doing?
Forestry and wildlife. Research, that kind of stuff.
So, and that'll be our third official meeting. So we're really at the beginning phase of this. I guess if you're interested in this and don't know about this, shoot me, Bubba, Ted, Ryan Parker, Sim Barrow, any of us an email and say you want to be part of it. And we'll, as we gain steam, we'll start probably doing some branding under the Central Hardwoods joint venture and maybe set up a newsletter if we get that big and awesome eventually and have a web page and things like that. So up next, let me share my screen. We've got, oh, that's not the right one. This one. We got updates from Lauren Looper. Is that right, Lauren Looper? Luther, sorry. Lauren Luther and then Austin Kleiss talking about open pine restoration success.
Just while Lauren's walking down there, a lot of y'all know about the Open Pine RCPP program we have, South Arkansas and North Louisiana. And a lot of y'all have been involved with that pretty directly in one aspect or another. But the main idea there is the CDN in South Arkansas and North Louisiana came together and has received now two RCPP projects from NRCS. We're working through finishing that first one up and initiating the second one. So really good place. We got to expand the footprint on the second one. Pretty much everything from Little Rock to Alexandria now is covered under that. And Lauren's probably going to talk a little bit more about, kind of the details of that, but especially sharing some of the success stories that have come along with that. So with that.
Yeah, thanks, Austin. Yeah, I want to talk to you guys a little bit about some of the successes that we've seen in some of these open pine restorations. But first, if you've never met me, my name is Lauren Luther. I am a first-year master's student with Dr. Caleb Roberts in the Arkansas Cooperative Research Unit in Fayetteville. I'm interested in habitat restoration, and so this has been a really cool project to get to work on. So the objectives of my project have been to quantify the response of quail and other grassland birds to savanna restoration. And my lab mate on the bottom here, Gracie Watley, she has been looking a little bit more at the turkey response and how these two interplay together. And together, she and I are hoping to find the recipe for successful savanna restoration, whatever that may mean for any particular landowner. And we also want to help Game and Fish spread these kinds of success stories. So our data collection last year, or my data collection, we were across 2 private land sites and 1 public land site. And we conducted point count surveys, we used autonomous recording units, and we did veg surveys at each of those sites. And we plan to expand this a little bit more this year onto 4 public land sites. So what our avian data collection looked like was we did 2 types. We did point counts, which entailed us going out to each point and noting down what birds we heard and saw in a 3-minute span. We went out to each point 3 times and repeated this process. And this gives us abundance data so we can see how many of each kind of bird we have. We also use these little recorders that you see on the right, this little green box. It's an ARU. This records birds for a set amount of time. For us, it's 4 hours, 2 in the morning, 2 in the evening, every day for 2 weeks. And then we put this data through a program called BirdNet, which identifies the birds. We go back and check BirdNet. And then that gives us presence absence data for each of our points. So just a little bit of background of the kinds of sites that we're looking at. This is one of our sites that has not been thinned. This has a pretty high basal area, and you can see that there's not as much light reaching the ground. We have a pretty homogeneous understory. A lot of that's beautyberry, I think, in this picture. And we have really high basal area and really high canopy cover. And so part of what the RCPP does is it takes a site that looks like this and it turns it into this. So this is one of our thin sites. This is a much lower basal area, much lower canopy cover. You can tell that there's a lot more light on the ground. There's a lot more variety in our plant species, which is also better habitat for our grassland birds. So these are the kinds of birds that we are interested in for this particular study. So we have the grassland group and we have our scrub group. And today we're going to be talking a little bit more specifically about our northern bobwhite and our prairie warbler, which is in the scrub category. It's in the middle column on the left. And then right above that is the yellow-breasted chat. So how do these birds in general respond to basal area reduction? We can see here that as our basal area increases, both groups decline pretty dramatically. And that is kind of what we would expect, but it's nice to have the numbers to back that up. And this data is from my abundance data. This data is from presence absence data collected by the American Bird Conservancy. And in the red, we have our absences, and in the green, we have our presences. So we can see that as we have higher basal area, we have more absences, and we only see quail in areas with lower basal area, and that's around 50 and below. And so that same trend we see in the abundance data that I collected last year. Prairie warbler is a similar story. This is the occupancy data. We can see that they also cap out around maybe 60, and then we get a lot more absences. For our abundance data, we see the same trend. And I include the raw data in this figure because you can see that as we hit 60, we do not see any more prairie warblers. It's not just that there are a few of them, there are none once we hit a high enough basal area. And then lastly, we see the same response in chats, which is a much more abundant species anyway, but it still shows the same pattern. Now, we also looked at canopy cover because basal area and canopy cover are similar, but they're not exactly one-to-one, but we still see the same trends, the same negative trends. So whenever we have higher canopy cover, we have fewer grassland and scrub species. And we'll just look at the bobwhite for this one. It's the same kind of thing. Bobwhites are only present at around 30 basal area, and they are not present above 50 or so. And we see the same trend with the abundance data. So for a pretty prime example of this, this is one of the sites that I was on last year. The warmer color dots have a higher abundance of quail, and the cooler, smaller dots have fewer quail. And like I said, this is the same site. These are very close to each other, but you can tell that the southern one has way more quail on it. So the difference between these two is the top one has been managed pretty patchily. There are only a couple of spots that have really been thinned down like the quail need. You can even see them, like the two larger dots, those have been thinned, but pretty much nothing else has. That first picture that I showed of an unthinned site was taken in that northern section. But this bottom area has a lot more quail and the whole site has been thinned down to about 60 or below. And that is where my second picture is from. So the bottom line of all of this is that less basal area and less canopy cover is leading to more quail on these sites. They were able to get their site up to a half bird per acre, and this family was able to sustainably hunt quail on their property for the first time since 1982, which is just really telling of the work that they've been putting in to their site and that everyone else has been helping with. So our plans for next year, I go out in 2 weeks. I'm going to Morrow Big Pine, Little Bayou, Warren Prairie, and Casey Jones to do the same point counts, air use surveys, and vegetation surveys on those sites. And Gracie Watley, my lab mate who started on the turkey work, she is gathering up some of her game cams and ARUs next week so she can start analyzing her data so we can look at how the response is varying between turkey and quail. And she's also interested in looking at the effects of mesopredators as part of her work.
She's not with the turkeys for tomorrow.
I don't think so. But that is everything that I have. If she's.
Use your microphone.
Yeah, can please get their microphone.
Yeah. I don't know why, so. I don't know why. I don't know why. Arkansas is not included in this study, but Turkeys for Tomorrow announced a large-scale mesopredator study for turkeys. Huh?
Arkansas?
I don't think Arkansas is included.
Is this Craig Harper?
Are they?
No, okay.
Yeah.
No,
So
no,
I didn't see them in the write-up that I.
No, there's like 4 of those going on right now at Canton. Turkeys for Tomorrow has one, and I can't remember why Arkansas was not there. But Craig Harper's also has something similar that's going on that we are a part of. And then Gracie is in just with the co-op unit, studying this with, Dr. Roberts, just as another study. So a lot of this is really backpacking on one another, but they're all different studies.
Question, Gracie, I have to speak loud. I don't go back to them, but I thought on the charts where, on the quail, it seemed like there was a minimum, a cutoff, and that's because you didn't study anything with a lower basal area than that, or is it actually the fact that without any basal area, there are no quail as well? I'm just curious.
That for the box plots, or is that for the line graphs?
Box plot.
Okay, so that is data that was collected by the American Bird Conservancy, so I would have to throw that to Austin.
Go back to that slide.
Yes.
All right.
Yeah.
So. Yeah, my guess is it's gonna be those study sites.
That's it, that's study site.
That's what I think. I just want to, thanks.
Any other questions? Any other questions? This thing is blinding.
Quick one. You said that family, first time they had hunted since 82, maybe I missed it, but how long have they been working on this and how many fires and
and that type of management?
Yeah, so that's one of my chapters is looking at how management's affecting what birds we see and what vegetation we see. The problem is that one of the problems that I've run into is that a lot of these private landowners don't keep very clean records of when they burned and how many times. But from what I can tell best, it's only been maybe 5 years. It really hasn't been that long, and they've been able to get quite a lot done.
Yeah, so I have a little history there as well. We've told a story similar to this. Is that family, when Austin Clyce came on, we met him at Ray, or just happened to bump into him at Ray's, and Austin had his Quail Forever shirt on, and they said, what are you going to do? Bring quail and turn them loose? And kind of laughed. And Austin went through his spiel that he's been preaching for 10 years now about habitat, and they kind of laughed at him. And so as we started getting some success on some other landowners around him of hearing birds, not to that density, they started talking to us a little bit more. And they finally came to me at the first of the RCPP and said, all right, you tell us what to do, we'll do it. Well, we had some eligibility issues, farmer track numbers and different things. And Bubba couldn't get the ball across the goal line. I kept fumbling at about the 5. And Clayton Whitaker comes on. And meantime, they started, this has probably been about 5 years ago, to answer your question. They started cutting some timber. And they did some of their first thinnings then. They started on the south. So that south block is about 2 years ahead of the north block. But they started thinned it to probably 60, 80 basal area like we would normally expect. And fires, they did it kind of for fun. We'll say that. And some were more successful than others. So it was just a hodgepodge of what they did. Well, we finally, when Clayton came on, and I told him, I said, if you don't do anything else in your career, you finish what I started. I said, because I couldn't. And they actually met us out at Little Bayou, and they said, you tell us what to do. And we met with Ryan about 30 minutes. He's got the family there, and we talk, and he says, okay, we got a meeting. We'll talk to you later. And I'm thinking, well, we just lost that. And he calls us that afternoon. He said, you tell us what to do. And so Clayton drew the plan up through the RCPP for both of them. They were actually on that south block, had done some thinning, I think, or maybe in the north one. But anyway, they were on one of the blocks. They had just cut through, and it was running about 60 basal area. They were just about to pull off and go to the next one. And he went back out there, and he said, y'all turn around and go back through there again. You didn't cut it low enough, and made them recut it. And so I say all that to say it's been about 5 years. The north block is about 2 years behind the south block, and we fully intend that north block will look just like it. But we went out this past June, and it was unbelievable the amount of birds that were out there. I mean, they're everywhere out there. And Clayton told them, and what was really rewarding at the end of it, after seeing Austin walk in Young's and hearing that comment. They said, one thing we ask, if you put ARUs out, you do research, is I would like to see something, a report on that. And said, we've let a lot of people do things, and we've never seen, they've always promised to show us what the results were. We've never seen anything come back. So we told them, all right, Lauren came down, June, July, somewhere back in fall, September, whenever it was. And most of their family lives off in other states, and they came in to see her present most of that data right there. I mean, they were that excited about it. So it's really been fulfilling to see it from Young's barbecue to right now. And so yeah, is that
Basically, it looked like on that side. I didn't see
40 to 60? Yeah, 40. So Clayton drew it up really, really neat. So that's probably running about 40-ish in there. Got some small clear cuts in it, and we also left some like SMZs, and we left some stuff that did not get cut. And so instead of like when I was writing plans back in those days, it was kind of a paintbrush 40, we're taking all of it to that. Now we're looking at where is it more feasible to take it down that low. Some of it's more of a mosaic of habitats in there, and man, it really looks good.
Yes. Do you want to see specific species?
I'm just curious, do you have sites that have 0 basal area?
No, this is extrapolated out. So most of ours lot, Actually, I think we did have a couple that are 0. We had a couple that were on the edge with a field, and I almost included a picture of that, but we don't have very many that are at 0. This would be a little bit unrealistic for some of our scrub species to be doing that well at 0. So, yeah.
I mean, I don't know enough about quail. Understanding, but
Are trees an essential component?
No.
So, I mean, are you measuring sites that have been cut and are being restored to prairie
Oh,
in
no.
absence of trees?
Yeah, we're mainly in pine savannas for this project. We're not really focusing on prairies.
Okay.
Yeah.
On the abundance data, we might have a couple, Ricky, I don't know if you know off the top of your head, any on the Blackland sites that we've done some work on through previous RCPP contracts. That's the only ones I could think of where the ARUs would be placed in pure, totally open. But so the exciting thing is this is really the first time most of us are seeing some of these figures at least, and it's all following the same stuff that we would expect. Maybe a little bit one way or another, but it's really following the same thing that you see across the quail literature. Once you get below a certain threshold, all of a sudden they just skyrocket. And there's different management considerations, especially when you get to that really open end of it. So that's not to say that no trees is the only way to go. It's just there's things to think about. So that raw data that you showed, I think, is probably the most telling, where it totally dropped off at a certain point. So, and the fact that there's 2 different studies going on here. The one that Lauren's leading is a lot about the abundance and how many quail you have at the site versus the one with the ARUs specifically that the partners are actually placing out on the site. It's just presence absence at the moment. That's where we're at. So we'll probably be digging into this a lot more going forward, but this is closer than we've ever been to actually having hard numbers instead of, just, well, I think it's this and I think it's that, and here's what we seem to be here and here's what we seem, but now we're actually getting some data behind it. So definitely some more in the future, and we're excited to be where we're at.
Sorry if I missed this. Hey, you're making fun of me. Sorry if you said this and I missed it, but what's the size of blocks of land are you?
Yeah, so this one site was, the northern section of it was not 900 acres and the southern section is 700. So.
700 feet.
Mhm.
Yeah, 7 to 900.
One,
Yes. Yes, sir.
yeah. I'm almost done. I only have one more study season, so.
How much is the range on one of those ARUs?
Yeah, so my undergrad
Put
project
out.
worked with this a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
what I
with
saw.
the spacing is 250 meters so that they don't overlap. I've seen some of that with king rails and some of that other, so I would assume, 200 meters, so they put them out at least 250 meters apart, so they're not double counting birds.
Yeah, ours are 400 meters
Yeah.
apart. So, okay, so for this southern site, we overlay a grid on the map. And so each of these points is 400 meters apart. So this is 26. It started as 26. We have some additional points that are some American Bird Conservancy points that we were following up on. So this ended up being 29 points. And our northern section ended up being 45. Mhm.
How good are those ARU at filtering out really bad turkey?
So we use BirdNet to analyze the bird call data just because 4 hours a day for 2 weeks for over 90 points for just one summer is way too much for one person to go through and listen to. So we put it through BirdNet, which is supposed to analyze and identify all of the birds for us, but we still have to go back and check it because BirdNet makes mistakes all of the time. And so,
I
yeah.
don't want to skew your data on Morro Big Pine here.
Mm.
All right. Any more questions? Well, thank you. Next, we will have Trey Rosenbaum from Natural State Land Consulting. Stop sharing.
If you don't mind. I'm bad about standing in one place. So I don't have a ton to say. I just wanted to get up and introduce myself. Debbie and I are on the Pulaski County Soil Conservation District together. I know a few of you in this room through various agencies or things I do, and I'm also part of the board for Arkansas Green Industry Association. So trying to grow nurseries and landscapers and all that stuff in Arkansas. But I'm in the process of starting a wholesale nursery in North Little Rock, about 30 seconds off of I-430, and wanting to do a big emphasis and focus on natives. I know a lot of y'all have projects that you do, whether it be habitat restoration or pollinator projects, projects for birds and increasing bird populations. I have heard and I have experienced as formerly being a grower, it is hard to get plant material. You can get seeds, but you can't get plant material. And so I'm trying to help that. I'm not going to be 40 greenhouses. I wish I could. I don't have $10 million. But I'm starting out with a couple and hoping to expand. But I've got years of growing experience, and I have years of growing experience with natives and pollinator-friendly plants. And so I'm trying to bring local plug production to Arkansas, where you're not having to order it from Colorado or California, where it's not acclimated to our climate. There's some really good data out there showing that if plants are grown within 75 miles of an area or within the same like temperate zone, you have a much higher rate of success. And so I'm trying to bring that to Arkansas. So want to meet you if you're somebody that does that kind of stuff. Would love to exchange contact info. The process is slow. It took me 6 months just to get a permit, and which has been unexpected, but it's just part of it. So, but I'm hoping to start construction this year, and I want to be able to provide those resources to all the various agencies and nonprofits that are represented. I know I've talked with, I love Quail Unlimited. You're awesome. One of my properties finally has quail on it, and I'm really excited about it. I promise I'm not going to hunt them. But I really want to help out bringing local plants to our regional area. So I'm in that stage right now where I want input, I want ideas. If you're looking for things specific, if you have projects that are coming up over the next few years, because natives take a while to grow. A lot of them it takes about a year. The last greenhouse I was at, I started a milkweed project in 24, and I left this last year and didn't even get to see it all the way through because it takes that long. Now, I doubt any of y'all have seen a 1 gallon milkweed that looks like a shrub. They were huge. But that's the kind of stuff I'm gonna be trying to do. So would love to meet you, would love some input. And I'll open it up for questions if there's any questions. Yes, sir.
My ignorance from being from Missouri, but does Arkansas have a Grow Native program, like a statewide entity at all?
Somebody that's with the state agency, can you answer that?
And if not, or if what you're doing, working with natives my whole career, if you can focus on small, reasonably priced, so people can buy 50 plants and not 3, that's huge, even from a urban landscaping, but let alone if somebody's wanting to, just like what we do with forest, if we need to interseed, you know, if you want to interplug, we've done a lot of that and had good success in Missouri, but it's with the smaller container natives, you know, that are just 1, 2, and 3 years old. So that's a
Yeah, absolutely. So plug trays will be my primary focus. So for those of you who don't know what a plug tray is, it is 10 inches wide, 20 inches long. It is an industry standard. So everybody grows in that industry standard. You know, they can have anywhere from about 20 something slots all the way up to 512. So it depends on what size you want to grow. 512 is literally the size of your pinky. So I'm not doing that kind of stuff. There are a lot of folks that grow some of the native grasses and stuff that have a really deep root system, grow in what's called a deep plug tray. They're about half the size of this mic as far as depth goes. And so it'll vary based on the stuff that I'm growing, but I know Audubon was telling me they use a lot of the 162 count plug trays, which is my favorite. And that's what I grow a lot of in. So it'll be an industry standard, very affordable. Plugs, it depends on what you're getting, run anywhere from $1 to $2 a piece. And then you have to pay up to $45 per tray in shipping because you have to air freight everything. I'm trying to eliminate air freight shipping and then grow them for cheaper than that. That way you can go in on a project where you've got to plant 5,000 plants. Seeds are great. I'm all for that, but it's sometimes a win or an easier sell to a landowner or like a regional partner, et cetera. When you're going in, you're planting 5,000 plants that they get to actually see. And then with our weed pressure and our insect pressure in Arkansas, it helps stuff get started a little faster. The greenhouse will be in North Little Rock. If I'm sure all of you know where the ADEQ and the new Arkansas State Crime Lab is, my family was the first group of people to purchase property inside of that office complex. And so I've got right now an acre and a half. I am talking to other developers, but I've got about an acre and a half of the flattest, brightest, perfect land for growing stuff. And so I'll be growing in that office complex. Yes, sir.
Grasses and forbs or shrubs too?
I will not be doing shrubs or trees yet. That I'll need a lot more property. And I'd just be upfront with you. I got to make a living, and there's just not a ton of money in that. I wish there was. One day, I hope there is. Grasses, forbs, aka perennials, the blooming stuff, the stuff that looks pretty. That's where there's profitability in. But also, that's frankly where I found the demand for too. Anyone else? Okay, guys, thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak. Appreciate it.
All right. Last person is John Pennington, and he's online out in the middle of nowhere in the Buffalo watershed somewhere, I think. John, are you there? He texted me and said he's here, so that was 8 minutes ago. Yeah, he's right there. Let me see if I can unmute him. Nope. Does your speaker work? He's texted and said he's here. It's just not working. Yep. Yeah. What if yeah, here, let me try this. Hang on. John, are you talking? Oh. All right, I guess I will start. I gotta unmute all this stuff again. He's texting and saying he's there. Your speaker's not working though, John. He said, tell them we have trees. I'll tell y'all what it is. It is, hang on, let me get in here. Oh. Here we go.
I was almost done.
There, we can hear you now.
Wow, that's really weird. I guess it was the internet.
We can hear you.
Thanks for allowing me to talk with you guys today about the Central Arkansas Tree Planting Project. We have about 38,000 shrubs and trees for landowners to use for businesses to plant on their properties. There really is not much limit to how these plants can be used. But I think it is a great opportunity for landowners to get resources. If you all would like to share that information with the private land biologists, share that information with their contacts, or if NRCS could let landowners in Perry, Pulaski, Lone Oak, Saline, Grant, and Faulkner counties, that 6-county area, know about that. And so the project just got funded in late February and started in mid-March, and trees just showed up at the beginning of April. And so it's a real short window to get them all out to people. And we're looking at starting to moving into potting them. And we couldn't do this without partners in the project, like Forestry Division, for example. They're letting us keep all the trees in their cooler and going to let us set up a nursery site out there, and other partners doing the same. But there may also be some opportunities for a conservation district or for an organization to be able to support the project by helping to store, care for, and distribute and track where these plants go. The Saline County Conservation District, for example, is going to set up a nursery, and they're going to pot and irrigate and give away and track plants as part of a mini grant on this project. And so there are those small opportunities also, but partners really make the project happen. Without partners, the project really would be difficult to get done. So we've got 40,000 this year. We're going to be having about as many come in here for the next 2, maybe 3 years. The project's over in August 2029. If there are trees that you all like or want or prefer, please let me know. We can order plants, especially just however people want, if we can get them. And moving forward, almost all of our plants are going to come from the state nursery here in Arkansas, but this year we had to rely on neighboring states to provide stock. But Game and Fish helped get some trees to a school to plant, which was nice. Some of the stream habitat program people said they would like cottonwoods, for example, so we would like to get cottonwoods that can be used for stream restoration. Some farmers have mentioned fruit trees, so there's also that. This year, the trees are all native trees and shrubs. But in order to get 166,000 total planted in 3 years, we're not gonna just stick to that because there are other uses for trees that people could like a tree for, which, produce food or something like that. So real short, that's just the project. But I think everybody in the room, or on this call today almost is a project partner helping distribute plants and find people that would like to participate using the plants to help their stakeholders out that they interact with. And so I'm hoping you guys can give me a lot of information on what you would like or how we could work together to support each other's programs. And thank you
Awesome.
again for the time today.
Thank you, John. I had to run out real quick. Did you say what counties? Did you say the counties?
Yeah.
Okay. And then did
Yeah.
you say if there's a limit to how many trees could be purchased or the size of the area?
There is no limit. Isn't that something? There is no limit.
All right. Thank you. Yeah, I think that was the only 2 questions I wanted to make sure that were covered. The website link, I put the email. Oh, right there. I can't, it's not text. I'll send this flyer out to y'all. Yeah, I'll shoot this out in an email. That way everybody gets it. All right, John, thank you. Go have more fun working outside. We'll hold it down in this auditorium for you.
Yeah, the cows are playing games with my plot today, so I about got it all figured out before I was able to join this. And thanks again.
Yes, sir. We'll see you later.
All righty. Bye.
Okay. So I'm gonna try this because I like walking around too. All right. Well, before I get going, does anybody else have anything, announcements? Anybody online? You can speak up if you want. My presentation is short and sweet. Yeah, I bet I'm done with my part in the next few minutes. Since we met in January, I didn't have a ton of stuff to cover today. I keep getting pulled into wetland and environmental compliance stuff. And I like policy and laws and all that junk well enough, but I like this other stuff a lot more. So here are where we're at on practices right now on these updates. I've been trying to get all the specs and implementation requirements updated for a lot of stuff. I know I've told you all this, I think every time we've met since 2023. I need to, because I've been pulled away, I need to look at riparian herbaceous cover again, but I think it's done. I just can't remember. It's been like a month and a half. So I'm pretty sure it's done. I had some Game and Fish and TNC people and others review it for me. So we'll publish that soon. These are the scenarios inside of it. I think I need maybe to look at the IRs because the way I'm trying to write these is to have an IR that covers multiple scenarios or multiple IRs if the scenarios don't really fit together for one IR. Wildlife habitat planting is done. But the spec and IR need to be updated now for 2 reasons. One, we have wildlife habitat site prep and all that paperwork is done and published. I emailed it all out to y'all a couple days ago, or maybe yesterday. That was yesterday. It's all running together. The new scenarios though are interplanting potted plants and shrubs and planting with plugs. These both pay a big chunk of money. I need to talk to people about expenses for one. I want to talk about 348, planting with plugs first. So if we get to a situation where people can buy lots and lots of plugs, starting off at least, I kind of see this as transitional pollinator habitat in urban small scale scenarios with alternative crops. I think that it'll be an easy way for landowners to either propagate their own plugs or plant plugs. I want to start having conversations. So if any of y'all are interested in talking to me about this, I talked to Jonathan about it a little bit ago. Trying to find funding for conservation districts to buy equipment and Game and Fish. We had Ted, we were talking about this too. Game and Fish picking up equipment to plant plugs. It can be done. I'd need to double check. I think this scenario though, it pays like thousands of dollars for an acre or something, like $5,500 an acre or something. We were through 35 to 8,500, depending on, yeah. Not any more than a no-till drill. So, you know, and the conservation districts, lots of them have no-till drills already. So, well, we are hopefully heading that direction. Right now I'm kind of thinking there's a time and place for this stuff. I don't really see this being a large scale deal. Otherwise it's just going to eat up all of our funding. So there's going to be sideboards on that. Interplanting with potted plants and shrubs. I wrote an implementation requirement for CSP for that this year to kind of see if anybody would want to try it. But Clint Johnson put the idea of shrub mots in my head a couple years back. And so I'm trying to play around with that. I've got a pretty good IR written for that. I want to think about it some more and talk to some other people about it. We've got a really good shrub list for this, really for 390, 420, and 422, because you can plant shrubs in all of those practices. Or I mean, sorry, it'd be 391. So it's coming out as soon as I can. Well, it's coming out in the next month or two is kind of my plan. I'm going to be emailing people and asking questions. The hedgerow planting stuff. I've got to figure out that first scenario, grasses for poultry house air quality mitigation. There's some white papers out there for that. It's the species. I know how to put it in an IR and tell people how to design it. It's just what species should we be using? One of the studies I read, it was like crepe myrtles, and I don't know if we want to be throwing a bunch of crepe myrtles out there. So that one will be kind of interesting. The other two scenarios, high and low labor. If we have the same scenarios next year, I think I may take the high labor one off because it's literally basically just says we're going to pay you more for planting a hedgerow in a more remote location. That's harder to get to. Unless the people in the Ozarks that are trying to do this where there's no topsoil in like Baxter County think that it might be necessary. So we could talk about that one some more. But the hedgerow stuff, Ryan and I knocked out, and I mean it's done. I need to circle back and double check that. Any questions about this stuff?
Curious about the grass and the poultry.
Yeah. Yeah, it's because it's literally like where the fans blow out of the poultry houses, it catches all the particulate matter. And so what fits there and what's going to live, that's covered in dust. So.
I was going to say, we can go up to, Chesney Prairie.
Yeah.
Chesney Prairie has got a chicken house running right down the right side of it, and it's blowing right out onto the prairie.
Okay.
Go take a look.
Chesney Prairie. Okay. Anything else in this? Y'all good?
Happened up there, are all the grasses dying? No.
A lot taller.
They're getting fertilized. Yeah, they're getting fertilized. They're mutant.
You can stand out there and look and see it's different. I've never really dug in and see it.
Doug was asking what's happening up there. It's mutant grasses at Chesney Prairie where this poultry house is blowing.
Biomass planting, like switchgrass.
Yeah, right. That's biomass planting is kind of where I'm with it too. I don't know if there's really any rule on that. I want to go with whatever the white papers say. I might have something written down, but I haven't looked at it since like February.
Well, it's,
Yeah.
I'm thinking more, y'all had issues with skunks and, just things getting into chicken.
Predators, yeah.
So if you plant that to it, makes it easier access.
Yeah.
But you probably want to have some kind of buffer.
Yeah. I had not thought about that, Bubba, so I will keep that in mind. That's a good point.
Yeah, you can burn it. I mean, yeah, if thing catches on fire, you gotta throw it right next to it. At least you got a fight chance, you got a 15-foot buffer or something.
That's why FSA gives people insurance, right? I'm kidding. Okay, moving on. So interim practice, 828 wildlife habitat site prep. It's rocking and rolling this year. We got the spec and the IR done. I'm excited about it. I've had to explain how to plan this to our field office staff without providing really any training specifically on this. We did cover how site prep's supposed to work for wildlife habitat planting. So they've kind of got the JAA for this already, but you can plan low and high intensity in one contract is kind of where I'm trying to push it if site prep is going to go longer than a year. And so the low intensity basically has enough funding to cover 6 months of site prep from like July to December. And then the landowner can get paid. And then on the high intensity scenario, they'll start quote unquote January, even though it's just going to lay fallow, but they'll prep for that full year, that second year, and then they'll plant in the winter and they'll get paid for the high intensity at the end of that year in the planting. So this really will help habitat planting because it's breaking up those payments and the landowner isn't hung out to dry, waiting on funding or waiting on money for herbicide purchase and fuel and whatever else they need. Mechanical stale seed bed, I'm really wanting to keep that small scale stuff. I know Missouri and Midwestern people, they do a lot of tilling for planting, and we down here don't want that because the intent, let me think, the message doesn't always reach the landowner, I guess, with that. And especially if we get in bigger plots, they're going to have to go out and disc that stuff up 3, 4, 5, 6 times a year, to keep the seed bed from taking over. And so I would rather use chemical. And I've got all that rolled into the spec and the IR. There's a specific piece that talks about scenario 3. The big thing I'm asking y'all who are involved with this though, is we as agency specialists need to report back to our regional and national biologists on these interim practices. So I can do all the data pulling stuff and basically say, yeah, we planned this and it's working, but I would like for y'all, and I will send an email out asking, like, now's the time to send me some feedback. Send me feedback on the practice documents, how it's planned, how it's working with landowners, just the concepts, anything good or bad about this. I'll probably, I guess it would be this fall. I'll try to see if we've got any that have been planned and implemented. If not, then it'll be next year because we're kind of late to the game on this one. But we want this to become an actual conservation practice that is used kind of like 490 and 612. And so that feedback basically saying that it's working and here's why is why I need that information from y'all. Oh, I just saw waste facility closure up there and I was like, why the heck is that on there? So here is the only kind of actionable recommendation level item that I've got on my presentation today is high priority practices. These will be for FY27. So this is what we're using this year, and 643 is on there and we're not planning 643 anymore. These have been the top 4, sorry for yelling, the top 4 have been on that list for a while. I think with 390 coming out and the training I'm going to provide and the work that we're going to be doing with floodplain and aquatic connectivity stuff in the future, well, hopefully we'll get 390 riparian herbaceous cover contracted more. We added site prep. Might have done that in January, maybe last spring. We added site prep and took 420 off. That's right. Are there any practices, are there any practices that we need to include? And so the reason, I should have put up the reason behind this for those of you that don't know. High priority practices are practices that aren't typically contract that will have a large impact on what we call resource concerns. Typically, from being the water quality specialist in the past and just looking at what has been planned and applied through our programs, we don't use trapping practices. Well, landowners don't sign up for trapping practices because they're not recommended, because they're seen basically as taking land out of production. That's where the riparian herbaceous cover and riparian forest buffer stuff comes in. Anything along the edge of a water body in a floodplain or a riparian area is a trapping practice. And then we threw habitat site prep up there basically to get the 90% cost share rate and try to incentivize the use and adoption of that. So are there any practices, and I confuse y'all just completely with what I just said.
Drop 643.
We're dropping, we're gonna have to. I guess, can we get a formal recommendation to drop 643, just so I can send that to Amanda from one of y'all? Anybody? All right, thank you. Anybody online? Could do hedgerow. All right, I'll move on if there aren't any other recommendations. So I wanted to talk about feral swine eradication and control pilot. I came in late from the last pilot and was not as involved as I wanted to be with it. Really, the NRCS is kind of the medium for funding for this pilot. APHIS they're the ones doing all the technical work. The funding that we provide are going to ANRD and the conservation districts who are doing all of the technical work. Other states have used EQIP funds for land damage repairs. My perception, and I might be wrong, is it's mainly crop damage from feral swine. That's the big money items. You know, when you get hog wallows and things like that, they're not acres and acres and acres. It's quarter acre or smaller that needs to be fixed. And so I just kind of think it's a little weird that we're involved in this, but we are. We have a new proposal that Robert Bird from APHIS and I had to slam together in a month from December 5th and turn it in January 5th. And we had to get meetings together and stuff like that while everybody's on vacation during the holidays. But we have a plan. And so these slides I'm showing you now are a few of the slides from a larger presentation that I put together before. But the proposal we submitted was part of $105 million that came from the Big Beautiful Bill a year ago. And that funding is actually FY25 through FY31. The way it's going to shake out, if and when we ever hear that this proposal was accepted, is October of 26, so the beginning of FY27 through the end of FY31 is where this money is going to work. Our half, so we got 50% is 47 million nationwide. So it's about 3.35 million per state. It's the same on the APHIS side. So it's about 6.7 million coming into the state between both agencies. The last project we did ended up being 12 counties in the end, I think. And they were kind of spread out. The plan we have now is to have 8 technicians covering multiple counties, and I've got to change that. Benton, Washington, Crawford, Franklin, those are included. I got to change the color on that. But 8 technicians spread across 8 different zones, basically. So they'll have 5 to 6 counties apiece. And they're going to work with landowners as liaisons between landowners and APHIS staff that will be hired to pretty well continue the work that was done before. But we are not going to have enough funding for all of the equipment that was involved in the last project. And it's really going to be, the message we got is it's supposed to be focused on land damage repairs. So that's why I was kind of hung up on that a minute ago. Is I don't know how much money we're going to pump into that. And really, I think it's going to be more focused on trapping more hogs. If we move to this map real quick. So the new project is covering zones 3, 4, and 1 in Woodruff County and zone 2. The plan we have is to try to eradicate hogs in the Delta in zone 1 and then contain feral swine and just shove them all on the Forest Service ground. But no, try to contain feral swine as well as we can and really shove them back down into Southwest Arkansas and out of the state. I'm going to go back to this. So yeah, like I said, conservation districts are going to each get a technician. We're going to be doing a ton of outreach. We've got to figure out the baiting piece. It's weird between APHIS and us and federal agencies buying stuff. We don't have money in the budget for traps. And so those districts that have traps, we're going to have to really figure out what the heck's going to go on with all of that. It's a lot of questions in the air. I feel like we're going to get this stuff in the next week and have 2 months to hire people and come up with the logistics of how each person's going to actually operate in these counties. On the APHIS end, they're going to hire another, oh gosh, yeah, they'll have 23 technicians plus ours, or is that together? I think we'll have 23 technicians total over the 42 counties if we get the money we want and it all works out. And then, Randy, if you're online, close your ears. I think this is right. I talked to Ryan about this. Game and Fish is trying to match for an RCPP project so they can run another round of SIP over 5 years. And the last number and this was in January or February, February, when I got these numbers. The last numbers I got from Ryan were going to be 2.6 million over 5 years for feral swine control through SIP, if that happens. No telling how that's actually going to shake out if they do get that RCPP. So this is where the traps are going to come in. So we're going to have all these technicians in North Arkansas for the conservation districts and APHIS. South Arkansas is still going to have technicians. And then hopefully we'll get more money through SIP. So landowners can get more of their own personal traps on their property to trap pigs. And our technicians can help them learn what traps to buy. They can help them bait and monitor them. And if the new farm bill ever passes, we'll have an additional $150 million nationwide. Pretty sure that's split 60-40 between APHIS and NRCS. And that should give us enough funding to do the same thing in South Arkansas that we're trying to attempt in North Arkansas, to fund everybody through the same time frame, through 2031, to tackle this giant feral swine problem that we have. But that's a lot of ifs. Now we know that we should get the original proposal stuff for North Arkansas, and that all is going to shake out. We're really going to have to, we're trying to mimic Missouri's system, and so we're really going to have to see, is this system going to work and how do we need to pivot with the money that we have? And that, again, it all boils down to money, and 3.35 million over 5 years. I built that budget. It took me a week to figure out how to get things to fit, where I thought we would have a chance of success. So, any questions on that? So now I've been talking about this thing too for 3 years. December of 2023, Joy Wasson and I put together a floodplain restoration working group. We had one meeting and then nothing happened. I've been talking to the partner lead for Working Lands for Wildlife Aquatics for those past 3 years about trying to hire somebody on to help me put together a floodplain management framework in Arkansas. The goal is really focused in the Ozarks and the Ouachitas and upland areas, and is going to be heavily focused on stream bank restoration. And the gap that we have is the way NRCS wants to plan and apply and how we want to use our funding to accomplish stream bank restoration compared to everybody else out there that's an implementer in the way that they do it. And so there's just this knowledge gap that we've got that we're trying to fix. And then on the collaborative end, we're trying to figure out all the pieces to the puzzle for the people who know what they're doing, and the people who can help put together, oh my gosh, where am I going with this? The people that can help put together a successful framework for this stuff. So the original name of this was Working Lands for Wildlife Aquatic Connectivity Initiative. It's now the Aquatic Southern Waters Framework. Their main goals are sediment and erosion, loss of riparian buffers and wetlands, barriers to aquatic passage. A lot of what we want to do here in Arkansas is the same thing, but I think that we've got some better ideas and really have kind of expanded beyond this too. And so this is the money that they were talking about at the national level. And every state has the opportunity to have people on staff through a contract as either a private land biologist or a private land engineer to help fix these endemic issues that we've got with our riverine systems throughout the Southeast. So finally, last summer, Jocelyn is this woman's name. Jocelyn, we hadn't heard from Jocelyn in like 6 months. They moved the framework stuff, staffing change from Virginia Tech to Georgia. And she got back in touch with me. She said she had the money in place, and I got in touch with Joy, and we finally got Joy hired on part-time as our floodplain specialist. So she is going to expand on some of the stuff I just touched on. And we've got you for 2 years. Yeah, 2 years. And we've got a lot of things cooking. So that's my entire presentation. Here's my contact info. Y'all all have my email, I'm assuming. And Joy, come up here. You're up next.
Yeah, I'm gonna take that microphone. Okay. Well, Kenton did a great job of recapping that. He asked me to be succinct about what we're trying to do because it's a lot. So you did a great job teeing it up. But some of you probably know me as coordinating the Arkansas Forest and Drinking Water Collaborative along with Chandler. I will continue to be doing that very important work and the community project and all of that as well. But this is something that not only have Kent and I been talking about for years, but the restoration community as a whole has been pushing for working more collaboratively with NRCS to get a lot more of this work on the ground. And I'll say, as a representative of that community, we have come, a long way in 20 years in how we're putting these projects on the ground. And the sophisticated level of implementers that we have in the state. So this is all really great, work that's been happening over a long period of time. And as we sat in this room today and talked a lot about forestry and forest methods, we do not really have a platform for our floodplain restoration group, which doesn't even really exist, to sort of go through all of this in the same way that you all do. So we're recommending what's working, what's not working, how we can better reach landowners. And so even in this group, we have practices that are applicable to floodplain restoration. Of course, they're forest related. And so it's an interesting dynamic because our group it's quite it's full of a diverse representative of approaches. So we've got engineers, we've got soil scientists, we've got hydrologists, we've got foresters, we've got policy people, and then we've got everybody that interacts with landowners on a regular basis. So it's been my experience over the last 20 years that we have a huge demand for these practices and a lot of problems on the ground, but we really haven't been able to meet that demand that landowners have. And the reason for that is multifaceted. It's not simple. It's not straightforward. There's a lot of barriers and hurdles for landowners putting these practices on the ground, and it's not just cost. And so it's really going to take a collaborative effort among disciplines to really tease apart some of these hurdles and barriers. It's not something that we can do in the water quality subcommittee or the forestry committee or the wildlife committee. We kind of need a working group of our own to really dig into these and solve these issues. So just this is my last slide, and I just am sort of throwing out here what our plan is for the next year. And we recognize that we can't just meet in Little Rock and get good representation and information gathered. We need to represent, as Kenton was saying, we're going to start with the upland areas, the Ozarks and the Washtenaws, so that we can have a regional focus that's related to hydrology and the conditions that exist there. And so we'll, probably be meeting in Little Rock and Fayetteville over the next year. But there's also specific parts of this work that are unique. So we're going to have focus groups for both of those regions that help us look at individual issues and help us solve that. So we'll meet regionally, we'll meet with focus groups, and then we'll finish with an overall group and recommendations. And so we just wanted to bring that to your attention today because we would like your involvement. So if you would reach out to Canton or myself, we're going to spend the summer figuring out who to invite, where we will be meeting, and then we'll get rocking in the fall with those meetings. And so I really think, as I described, this covers so many disciplines. We've got a great group already established that we've been pushing to do this for some time. But we definitely don't want to miss anyone. And so specifically what I'm thinking about is local municipalities, county judges that run their county roads programs, landowners, specifically ones that have maybe been involved or tried some of this work in the past, to be involved throughout the process. So we're pretty connected with our professional colleagues, but I can't say that we're super connected to a lot of the municipalities and county judges that have been active in this work, other than the ones we personally have worked with. So, like I said, we are starting with the Ozarks and the Ouachitas. We're not excluding other areas of the state. That's just where we want to start. So if you have Southern Arkansas people that are doing this work, or leaders in the community that are interested in or have issues or problems that they're trying to solve, we want to encourage those people to reach out to us too. So anyway, thank you for allowing us to present this to you, and please help us spread the word as you go out and work with people. Thanks.
That's all I've got. Any other burning topics, questions, concerns? Sir, you need a microphone.
So Austin and I and some folks from Louisiana, we've been working on CDN workshop, the West Gulf Coastal Plains CDN workshop. We're gonna shift some attention to some bottomland forest, and so we've been planning this with the Ross Foundation, Forestry Commission, or Division of Forestry, Kyle Cunningham, Mark Carnes with Ross Foundation, some experts from Louisiana. So we're excited about it. I've got the draft sitting here in front of me. Hopefully get that formal invitation out tomorrow, but that will be June 16th near Arkadelphia on the Ross Foundation property. So anything to add, Austin?
So is it
It's the West Gulf Coastal Plain CDN. West of Gulf Coastal Plain. Yes, ma'am.
alphabet soup?
Oh, yeah.
All right. Anybody online got anything? Well, I appreciate everybody who came today. Thank you, Doug, for having short topics and putting 5-minute time limits on discussion for your stuff. We'll get out of here before lunch one of these days. All right. Thank you all.